Chapter 351. Elder's Decision. The only way left for the sect is it still releasing the news. The same question was raised again at the elders' assembly when Yang Chen faced the elders who were in charge of the palace. This question has made everyone all silent. It was also a secret plane. This news was really too shocking for the elders. Yang Chen has discovered more than one secret plane and everyone knew this. But wasn't it now a bit too overboard to openly use a secret plane as a reward in partnership with other sects? And we gather the treasures there ourselves. Finally, after a long silence, Elder Zheng Feng, who was in charge of the storehouse of the Pure Yang Palace, asked. This question was on everyone's mind, but they were too embarrassed to say it. When Zheng Feng asked, Yang Chen saw the eyes almost all the elders shining brightly. The price needed to be paid for gathering it is very big. Yang Chen shook his head and helplessly said. If he didn't know that in his previous life the greatest heaven sect has paid an extremely painful price for this, otherwise Yang Chen would also be tempted himself. How much might it cost? Zheng Hong's temper was anxious and asked directly. Of course, this was also a question of interest to everyone else. The price of 3 to 4 masters of the defying stage. Yang Chen carefully recalled the experience of his previous life and finally gave his own judgment. After the greatest heaven sect received the secret plane, at least 3 of the defying stage masters directly announced their seclusion to the outside world. Till the time Yang Chen ascended, there was no recurrence of these masters. Presumably, even if they were not dead, they had paid a great price. SSSH, when Yang Chen's answer came out, suddenly he heard a large sound of intake of cold air around him. 3 or 4 masters of the defying stage, this was definitely not a price the Pure Yang Palace could pay, even if everyone could agree to this, the Pure Yang Palace does not have so many masters to let them bear the sacrifice. The people were silent again and no one said anything anymore. However, everyone had the same mind, they were somewhat unwilling. They needed to pay the resources of 3 or 4 masters of the defying stage to get the secret plane resources, the value of the things inside could only be imagined. The problem was that now the Pure Sun Palace can't pay the price and they could only watch the secret plane resources. Can you delay for a while, wait until the strength of the sect is strong enough and then we will take it out. The newly appointed Elder Qiaming, who was originally the lord of the fierce Yang Hall where Yang Chen was located. Now, he just mentioned this, he seemed not sure how to put it. No. Yang Chen shook his head and sighed there can only be 50 years of wait at most. When time passes, others will start to notice it. From the time of Yang Chen's detonation of the greatest heaven sect's welcoming array, it has been almost 20 years since then, and the greatest heaven sect required 100 years again to be able to receive another consciousness clone, so they had about 80 years. However, considering the time required to break through the secret plane, it would take another 30 years, so they could only have 50 years at most. After that, it would be known by the greatest heaven sect. Once the greatest heaven sect knew about the secret plane and the Pure Yang Palace has to do it again, they would become their archenemy. The greatest heaven sect would definitely put their sect's destroyed things directly on the head of the Pure Yang Palace. Although he was guilty, but Yang Chen was not willing to directly dispute with the greatest heaven sect when the Pure Yang Palace was still weak. For 100 years, it was not enough to level the distance between the Pure Yang Palace and the greatest heaven sect. If the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island know the news, won't they think that we are leading them into disaster? Elder Zhanxian was more cautious as he has more involvement in foreign affairs, so he considered all points. There is enough rewards. Yang Chen responded with a respectful tone. In fact, in the face of the elders, Yang Chen has always maintained a respectful attitude. In addition, the Island Master and Sect Master Lu cannot fully gain control of the too big sect. Perhaps, they also need a chance to let some disobedient guys do something. These words of Yang Chen suddenly made several elders look at Yang Chen's gaze immediately, there was another meaning to his words that could not be said clearly. Now Yang Chen was just a small Jidan stage disciple, but he could think of such a long-term plan and could also make full use of some external opportunities to strengthen the strength of his allies, he indeed has a limitless future. Such a disciple, fortunately was one of them and has always been loyal to the sect. Otherwise, if Yang Chen was pushed to other sects at the beginning, they don't know how many people who were present would regret it. Finally, after a long time, Zhu Chentao nodded if we can't get our hands on it, let's spread it. If it will be cheap for others later, it's better to make it cheaper for your own allies. Without a big appetite, don't think about eating so much good food. After saying this, Zhu Chentao even seemed that he suddenly understood a lot of things or has withstood the test of a temptation and his mind was more solid. Suddenly, no matter everyone in the elders' assembly meeting, he stand up and greeted everyone and said. I have gained some insights, so I am going into seclusion to comprehend it. After Zhu Chentao finished speaking, he turned and left and he did not return. The master of the palace was overjoyed and suddenly cried Elder Zhu wait. Zhu Chentao, who was walking, turned back and saw white light flying toward him. His hand stretched out and grabbed the white light that flew to the front of his eye. It was an unusually dense medicinal pill that was wrapped in a talisman. It was the second-grade questioning inner heart pill. He had some insights in his heart. When he retreat, he would take the second-grade questioning inner heart pill, which would double the effects. When everyone saw this scene, all of them were envious. Although the second-grade questioning inner heart pill for people at the level of the elders of the Pure Yang Palace, it was not a precious thing, and everyone knew this. However, this opportunity to comprehend was rare. Everyone admired Zhu Chentao for having such an opportunity. Since Elder Zhu Chentao has expressed his views, after everyone thought about it, they all nodded. This way of handling it was still the best, rather than wasting it in their hands, it was better to exchange it with their own allies. Everyone couldn't let it go at first. It was estimated that this kind of price that needed to be paid made the people feel that the income would be worthwhile. But what Zhu Chentao said was good. If they did not have a big appetite, they should not think about eating so much food. The Pure Yang Palace does not have that strength, so they couldn't entertain this idea. So, then let's do it according to this method. Finally, the palace master made a decision. However, everyone has already made a choice, and this decision was very good. The elders present were open-minded people, and no one even asked Yang Chen about the secret plane. It seemed to be handed over to Yang Chen to deal with by them. They were very relieved. Yang Chen, come with me. After the elders dispersed, the master of the palace was still in the same place for a while, thinking about it for a while, and said to Yang Chen. Some things, in any case, must be clarified, so as not to be sorry after an accident. Following the palace master, Yang Chen came to the house chosen by the head of the palace in the Immortal's cave. For the sake of convenience, the head of the palace has his own courtyard among the groups in several areas. Where they now were was in the location of Jidan's stage area. After placing several restrictions, the palace master asked Yang Chen to sit down. He then asked very seriously, where is the news of the secret plane coming from? Is it too from the greatest heaven sect? Some of these things, Yang Chen could not conceal it. When the palace master asked, Yang Chen nodded and admitted to it. Seeing that Yang Chen admitted it, the palace master immediately frowned. If it was the news from the greatest heaven sect, then the greatest heaven sect would know that Yang Chen has passed the news to the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island, which was easy to make people suspect Yang Chen. Isn't it too risky to do this? The head of the palace had some doubts about the feasibility of Yang Chen's idea. Once you let the greatest heaven sect know, the palace master didn't need to talk about the consequence. Yang Chen also understood. If the greatest heaven sect wants to know, it will take them about 80 years. The palace master was also concerned about Yang Chen. Of course, Yang Chen knew how to deal with it, and he hurriedly explained. This news was passed down from above. A descent of a clone into the lower realm. Of course, the master of the palace has heard of this magical technique, but the Pure Yang Palace has never had such an undertaking. Listening to Yang Chen saying that it was from above, he understood it immediately. At the same time, the master of the palace was also deeply shocked. What kind of technique did Yang Chen use to make the greatest heaven sect's formation explode? But he got the news from the clone. Although he was shocked, but the head of the palace did not ask Yang Chen. Everyone has their own secrets, and Yang Chen was no exception. The palace master directly connected all of this to the miscellaneous books that Yang Chen reads. Won't it be more difficult to explain at that time? The mind of the master of the palace quickly returned to the issue. It could be done in secret, but there must be perfect cover, otherwise it would lead to a dead end. This kind of secret plane is reserved for the people who have a relationship with the owners. Yang Chen smiled and explained, the secret plane has been passed down in the mortal world. The clone only passed down the position and the opening method of the secret plane and some adequate warnings. We will just find a suitable opportunity and let the greatest heaven sect know the existence of the secret plane. When everyone is fighting over it, we will be watching the show on the side. Seeing that Yang Chen was sure of his plan, the palace master also gave a sigh of relief and said. It is best to show no traces. If you can't do it, don't take risks. Yes, palace master. Yang Chen would certainly promise this kind of thing. Yang Chen was not a person who does not know how to be cautious. After agreeing to the palace master, Yang Chen suddenly remembered something and followed by saying. Palace master, there are some things I also want to report to the palace master. Oh? What is it? For Yang Chen to be so serious, the palace master was also curious about it. In a flash, the sailing magic weapon of the greatest heaven sect appeared in front of the head of the palace, and the water-winged wing also appeared, plus the sword of the robust man, and some things in their Qianqin bag. This is the palace master inspected the things, and he felt dizzy. The style of sailing boat and water-dividing wings, the head of the palace has heard about it, but he has never been seen one before. But suddenly it appeared in front of his eyes, the always calm palace master could not help but jump up in shock. Is this the things of the greatest heaven sect? After watching the sailboat and the water dividing wings, the head of the palace directly turned to Yang Chen and asked, his face was incredible. Yang Chen did not answer, but the look on his face has fully explained that there was no mistake in the judgment of the head of the palace. How did you get your hand on it? The voice of the head of the palace has already begun to tremble, although there have been several possibilities in his heart, but no matter what the possibility, he was still not able to keep calm. 6 Wielding stage ancestors of the greatest heaven sect tried to block this disciples at sea. Yang Chen had nothing to hide, directly in the most concise way he explained the process. As for the result, Yang Chen did not have to say anything more. The sailing boat and the water dividing wings and this pile of things were here, the end of the 6 Wielding stage ancestors could be imagined. What did they want to do? The head of the palace became angry and began to grind his teeth in his mouth, but in his heart, he knew more than anyone what the greatest heaven sect wanted to do. The development of the Pure Yang Palace has already made the greatest heaven sect feel a threat, and they even intended to secretly remove the outstanding disciple of his own sect. Without Yang Chen's medicinal pills, the Pure Yang Palace would directly return to its original shape. Even if there was some improvement now, it was not enough to become a qualitative change, and they still cannot threaten the greatest heaven sect. The master of the palace was more aware of the importance of Yang Chen to the sect than anyone else. He was also the person who knew that Yang Chen could be side by side with Wang Yong in the sect. Many of Yang Chen's secrets, such as those in Yang Chen's report, even other elders don't necessarily know. That's why the greatest heaven sect wanted to deal with Yang Chen. It's good that you killed them. In the anger of the palace, he couldn't help but praise. This matter, if you need to act, the sect will immediately send a note to the greatest heaven sect. Even if it is the greatest heaven sect, they still can't plot against my sect's disciples in the dark. Why would the sect act on it? Yang Chen directly turned his head into a rattle. While refusing, he smiled and said, why do you want to act? Now the most oppressed one is not this disciple, it should be a lot of people in the greatest heaven sect. Yang Chen encountered their plot, but he was unscathed, but the other party lost 6 Wielding stage ancestors, presumably at the moment it was not known how depressed they would be. As Yang Chen said, the most oppressed one at the moment was not Yang Chen. If you are going out in the future, you must be careful to take care of your safety first. The master of the palace knew that Yang Chen would not be holed up in the sect, but also knew that Yang Chen couldn't be persuaded, so he solemnly reminds. When necessary, when the wolf is running away, he will run away and save his life. As long as he is alive, he will not be ashamed. Yes, palace master. Yang Chen promised, and then laughed. This disciple never feels that there is any to lose face when he escapes. The dead person wouldn't have a face to lose. As long as you understand it. The palace master knew Yang Chen's temperament. He stopped talking about it. He just looked at the bunch of things in front of him and asked again. What are we going to use these things for? The water dividing wings will be of some use to this disciple. Yang Chen had already thought about this, so he quickly replied, this sailing boat is also a rare flying magic weapon. It is better to let Master Ancestor change its appearance so that it can be given to Gongsun Ling. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 352. Gongsun Ling's food. This was to be given to Gongsun Ling. This was Yang Chen's early thinking. His master Gao Yu already had the corpse of the second city lord for her flight, but there was still no good flying magic weapon on Gongsun Ling. Because of the requirements of the mountains and rivers geographical map, Gongsun Ling would travel to a lot of places in the future, and she also needed such a means of transportation. At least the speed of the sailboat could be compared with the current shuttle, it was a rare treasure. Of course, this cannot be directly handed over to Gongsun Ling with its current appearance. It was definitely necessary for an expert to refine it not only to change its appearance, but also some defensive measures must be added. Although the mountain river geographical map could increase the geographical map size during the quenching, it could not be used to protect yourself from the enemy, so it was necessary to let Gongsun Ling have a little self-protection. Gongsun Ling already has one Wielding stage praying mantis puppet, but Yang Chen's experience this time after being besieged by several Wielding stage masters also made him more cautious. The issue of making Yang Chen the sect's young palace master, the master of the palace, did not present it at the elders' assembly meeting this time. Perhaps it was because everyone was shocked by the secrets of the secret plane. Perhaps it was inconvenient to consider it in Yang Chen's presence. Yang Chen does not care about the identity of this young palace master, but Yang Chen was also very grateful for the support of the palace master. His master Gao Yu would be immersed in the refining her flying swords for a long period of time. If the dragon horn flying sword did not last a few hundred years old, it was impossible to refine it. Therefore, for the transformation of the sailboat for Gongsun Ling, Yang Chen naturally found ancestor Wang Yong. Of course, Wang Yong was also a person who knew how to judge precious materials. He does not even have to rely on the name of the sailing boat. From the refining method, he could see that it was made by a master of the greatest heaven sect. He simply asked what happened. Wang Yong, who was also boiling with anger, certainly would not refuse to accept Yang Chen's request. Although he could not directly find the people from the greatest heaven sect to make them pay, he was very willing to participate in the event that would cause a loss to the greatest heaven sect. When Gongsun Ling became aware that Yang Chen had given Wang Yong a flying magic weapon to refine for her, it made Gongsun Ling very moved. There has been an understanding between the two people. Therefore, although Gongsun Ling was embarrassed, she still glared at Yang Chen and pulled Yang Chen with her into her courtyard in the Immortal's cave. But surprised Yang Chen was that he didn't even know where Gongsun Ling got a bunch of cooking utensils. She then made Yang Chen wait. She was cheerful like a little swallow in her own kitchen while she fried a few side dishes for Yang Chen. This scene made Yang Chen feel a little surprised. He didn't know that when he occasionally mentioned that he liked wine and food, Gongsun Ling kept it in her heart and even secretly went to the mortal city to learn a lot of techniques of cooking, and she practiced it many times. This time, Gongsun Ling had put out all her skills. For the first time, she cooked for her most beloved junior apprentice brother. Gongsun Ling put out her best. When Yang Chen gave her the mountain river geographical map, Gongsun Ling did not dare to show this in front of Gao Yu. This time, Yang Chen came to her alone and gave her the opportunity and courage to show her love. With the perception of Gongsun Ling, when she concentrated on cooking, she quickly surpassed the most advanced cooks of the mortal people. In addition, she used spiritual power and some ingredients that no one could see at all in the secular world. Even the chefs of several countries would feel inferior in front of her. A few exquisite small dishes were quickly put on the table. Gongsun Ling sat on the opposite side of Yang Chen, watching Yang Chen's surprised eyes. She suddenly became worried. She didn't know if it would be to Yang Chen's taste. Yang Chen was indeed shocked by Gongsun Ling. Who would think that a cultivation genius like her actually put down her cultivation for a long time and learned to cook in the world of mortals. This action really made Yang Chen feel touched. For the taste of the food, Yang Chen did not even care about it. However, Yang Chen was still stunned by Gongsun Ling's enchanting degree of talent. The several small dishes looked inconspicuous, but they were unusually delicious. Together with the jade dragon wine, it was a perfect match. Yang Chen, who was eating the meal, almost swallowed his tongue. Yang Chen was happy, and Gongsun Ling was even more happier. Through her own hard work she could make her junior apprentice brother feel so enjoyable, so it was not in vain that she carefully prepared for such a long time. After drinking for a while with Yang Chen, Gongsun Ling asked about Yang Chen's next plan. This time, Yang Chen came back temporary. It was just to send the magic weapons back to his master and senior apprentice sister. He has long planned to collect the 7th metal true essence. This matter was not concealed from Gongsun Ling by Yang Chen, so he directly said it. Of course, Yang Chen did not elaborate on the specific location of the 7th metal true essence. Gongsun Ling also did not ask. Would you go to the domain of the demon sects? After listening to Yang Chen's destination, Gongsun Ling couldn't help but be a little surprised. However, she quickly recovered to normal. After a little thought, she suddenly asked. Can I go with you? Go together? Yang Chen became stunned. How did Gongsun Ling suddenly think of going to the domain of the demon sects? Was it just to be with himself so she would not hesitate to take risks? The more places where the mountain river geographical map goes, the more complete the map will become and the greater power it will have, isn't it? Gongsun Ling looked at Yang Chen's dumbfounded smile and explained with a smile. You are not going to the demon domain for killing, but just to collect some things. I can also sacrificially refine my magic weapon on the way. Gongsun Ling's geographical map of the mountains and rivers has not yet become a life source magic weapon. It has not been sent into her sea of consciousness by Gongsun Ling for quenching. However, the geographical map has an advantage. Even if she has not begun the quenching of the magic weapon, she could supplement the geographical map without any delay. Moreover, the geographical map also has another advantage. With this magic weapon, you would never get lost as long as you have it on you. Even in the midst of the puzzle maze, unless the level of the maze was higher than the level of the mountain river geographical map, it would never happen. But for the time being, in the mortal world, this kind of thing could hardly happen. Gongsun Ling wanted to gain experience in the domain of the demon sects. This reason was very reasonable. After Yang Chen thought for a while, he finally agreed. Instead of letting Gongsun Ling take the risk alone, it was better for Yang Chen to accompany her. Anyway, it would also be a smooth road. To collect the 7th metal true essence, it would take even the shuttle a year to go back and forth. Such a large site, adding it to the geographical map of the mountains and rivers, could definitely make the mountain river geographical map more powerful. Naturally, the benefits for Gongsun Ling would be enormous. However, before their departure, Gongsun had to begin the life source refining of the mountain river geographical map, which was a very difficult process for her. In order to increase Gongsun chance of success, Yang Chen even had a spiritual awareness double cultivation with her again. Although there was not much direct improvement in her spiritual awareness, the precision was greatly enhanced. Meaning she would gain more control when sacrificially refining the geographical map. While waiting for Gongsun, Yang Chen did not idle, but took his furnace and refined over 1,000 inner sensing pills. He handed over half of these inner sensing pills to the sect. Although they were not capable enough to give others the same breakthrough effect as Qiaoming and Zhanxian, they could make the masters of the Jitan realm thoroughly understand the internal conditions of their own bodies. Also they could detect the abnormalities in their own cultivation. If the vast majority of Jitan realm masters could detect their deviations at the beginning of their cultivation, they would still have a lot of time to correct the deviations in their practice. They would be able to save themselves from using the thunder pomegranate to correct it while crossing their tribulation like Zhanxian. There were many things that could be left out. The improvement of their personal cultivation would also be beneficial to the development of the sect. In order to prevent accidents, Yang Chen even took out dozens of thunder pomegranates and handed them over to the head of the palace. As a capable disciple emerged who needed it, it could be utilized. At the very least, it could guarantee the disciples crossing their tribulation to safely form their nascent souls. The intentions of Yang Chen and Gongsun were not concealed from Gao Yu. In this regard, Gao Yu was happy to see their arrangements. However, she must now invest her whole body and mind to refine her own life source flying swords and thus could not leave, otherwise, she would have also gone to the domain of the demon sects to join in their fun. During this time, Wang Yong did not say much about Yang Chen's and Gongsun plans. He instead spent a lot of time thinking about reshaping the sailing magic weapon. The design of the magic weapon would no longer be of a sailboat, but of a ship. Not only was there a change in appearance, but the flight speed will also be improved a little. When Wang Yong did not have the Qilin sword, he had a high-speed flying sword. From that time, he went from the sect to 100,000 mountains to save Gao Yu. This was that flying sword. This time, Wang Yong spared no expense while refining the flying sword into the large ship, making the speed of the ship 2 points faster than the previous sailing boat. Gongsun with her ability to drive the large ship could now keep pace with Yang Chen's shuttle. In order to add more protection, Wang Yong also added some defensive materials in the refining process and even let Gongsun herself participate in it, adding several formations and arrays, which greatly improved its protection capability. While flying the ship now could release a lot of smoke due to one of the arrays. From a distance, it would be like a thick cloud, making it undetectable. Another protective formation was added which adopted the principle to distract spirit power attacks. When attacked in one place, it would be evenly transmitted by the array to almost all the resistive parts of the ship, ensuring that it could not be destroyed with many small attacks unless a single brute force attack could destroy all of it at once. Whenever the Greatest Heaven sect used a sailing boat, it would be controlled by a Yuning realm ancestor with only the high-speed flight function. Now Gongsun only had the cultivation base of a Jitan realm master, thus, it needed to be protected well. In the Pure Yang Palace, Yang Chen and Gongsun was preparing for their journey, but the Greatest Heaven sect was caught in a lot of troubles. After the life tablets of the 6 Yuning realm ancestors chasing Yang Chen were broken, it had been confirmed that they all had died. The death of these 6 Yuning realm masters was a big event, even for the Greatest Heaven sect. Not to mention the fact that the 6 of them were on a mission for high-ranking members of the sect. Now Yang Chen had returned to the Pure Yang Palace unharmed, but the 6 Yuning realm ancestors of the Greatest Heaven sect had died, making them unable to associate Yang Chen as the culprit. To say that Yang Chen could kill 6 Yuning realm ancestors in an instant was an unbelievable possibility for the high-level members of the Greatest Heaven sect. A person in the early Jitan stage who could kill a Yuning realm ancestor in a one-on-one fight was already a miracle, not to mention 6, but also with the support of the sea-sealing flag array, which was simply impossible. However, the death of the 6 Yuning realm ancestors required an explanation. Similarly, what made the high-level members of the Greatest Heaven sect confused was that Li Junyu of the Green Jade Immortal Island was also a master of the Yuning realm, and she also brought dozens of 10th water divine thunders, but she still couldn't kill Yang Chen, even she herself was missing. It seemed that when facing Yang Chen, no matter how powerful the enemy was, he could always remain unharmed. On the other hand, his enemy would not be so lucky. If they were not missing, they would certainly be dead, such as the 6 Yuning realm ancestors of the Greatest Heaven sect, Li Junyu, or even Luo Yuan in the late Daching stage, which was very confusing. They definitely needed to find the answer to this question. In any case, the Greatest Heaven sect had already determined one thing: Yang Chen knew the ancient text on the secret key. This point had been confirmed in the experiment arranged by Li Junyu in the Green Jade Immortal Island, but they did not dare to let Yang Chen see some keywords for fear of what he would discover. That was to say, before Yang Chen delivers the solution to the mystery key, the Greatest Heaven sect would not have a problem with him for the time being, at least they will not try to kill him. Even if they wanted to kill him to vent their anger, it would be after the completion of this matter. What Yang Chen did was indeed little troubling, but the other matter made the Greatest Heaven sect have a headache. Recently, they didn't know how, a rumor about them started, which made the Greatest Heaven sect busy to come up with an explanation. The rumor was very simple, it was that the Greatest Heaven sect had started to recruit a lot of demon and monster cultivators to enrich the strength of their sect. They couldn't track the source nor any clue. However, in combination with the current situation, many people had begun to believe it. Their strength was greatly damaged. There was no doubt that the Mountain Gate had faced a calamity. The tens of thousands of outer sect disciples of the Greatest Heaven sect were almost swept away, everyone knew about this. Recently, the Greatest Heaven sect was also setting up a hall of eccentrics, and it was also a fact that they were recruiting monster cultivators. There was no way to deny it. So, wasn't it logical that they could recruit demon cultivators as disciples? It was natural to conclude that. Although many people were concerned with the arrogance of the Greatest Heaven sect, they did not bring it out face to face. Especially the ones that the Greatest Heaven sect recruited this time, as several of them were indeed from the monster race, and they had many relationships with the people in the demon domain. Everything showed that this rumor was not only some common gossip, but it did have something to do with it. In an instant, the Tao sect's leader of the Greatest Heaven sect was caught in an awkward situation. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 353. Demonic Sects Domain. The demon sects and the Tao sects had always struggled to coexist because their purpose and style of cultivation was all different. Therefore, in addition to righteousness, it had always been the reason for the Tao sects to eliminate the demons to protect their Tao. For the Tao sect's disciples to gain experience, including the rogue cultivators, was a great part of the reason for the elimination of demons to protect the Tao notion. Of course, as for the true demon sect disciples, there were still some differences, but at least in name, those were all part of the devils. Some rumors were easy to sever, but some not, thus, it would not be so easy for people who wanted to recruit the demon cultivators into their sect to absolve themselves. Although it sounded ridiculous that as the leader of the Tao sect wanted to collaborate with demons, which was inherently impossible. However, several monster cultivators who have been close to demon sects had joined the Greatest Heaven sect's Hall of Eccentrics, which in turn seemed suspicious. If one wanted to start a rumor, one had to explain the intention of the Greatest Heaven sect for recruiting these monster cultivators. Outside the sect, only God knew that when the Greatest Heaven sect recruited these people, they just wanted something that could augment their sect's strength. After making the vows with their monster soul, they would be faithful and reliable, they would not think that they would have such a complicated relationship. These rumors were anything good, this was related to the development of their sect. If they did not eliminate these misunderstandings with the other sects and continue to develop, they may lead them to have even greater contradictions. However, it was not so easy to explain this clearly. Even if the Greatest Heaven sect was too big, some things could not be reassured by words. Especially in the case of power the Greatest Heaven sect held, it was hard to believe their side of the story. They had the motive, they have made the move and they were suspected. A few monster cultivators who joined the Greatest Heaven sect would serve as evidence, so if they wanted to show their innocence with one or two sentences, it would not be easy. As for expelling the few monster cultivators to show their sincerity, it was even less feasible. Once this was done, it would temporarily indicate that the Greatest Heaven sect did not have much to do with the demon sects. However, would the monster race be willing to work with them again? Once those who made the monster soul vows were expelled, the Greatest Heaven sect did not even need to mention about recruiting the monster cultivators to enrich their sect, they would already be fortunate that they would not be regarded as an enemy by the whole monster race. For a time, the foreign affairs elders of the Greatest Heaven sect frequently went out to explain these misunderstandings to the various major sects, to clarify the rumors, and to make everyone feel at ease. If all of them had headaches about it, even the recruitment of new disciples for the sect will be hindered. The information and the materials needed to train the new disciples were all insufficient. Even if they recruited new disciples, it would not be good to train them. It could be that soon, the Greatest Heaven sect could only suspend the pace in this aspect and recruit the monster cultivators to form a fighting force. Yang Chen was very happy to watch this kind of excitement leisurely, especially when he knew where this rumor came from. He was enjoying it looking at his enemies at their wits' end. Whilst the Greatest Heaven sect was thrown into a major confusion because of the rumors that they started, the master of the palace was working with the elders to promote the establishment of forces in the secular world. Yang Chen's proposal had been valued by everyone and everyone had agreed. From the time when the greatest heaven sect started to vigorously recruit the monster race, they were bound to enter the era of madness with various other sects recruiting monster cultivators. Since even the monster race gladly accepted them and they could also be proactive about it, so why not? After the high-level members decided, everything was much simpler. For the servants, serving as slaves in the Puryang Palace, to return to the secular world to be influential people, was just too good of a proposition. All of them knew they just had to take this opportunity. It was all very simple, if one remained loyal to the Puryang Palace, one could avail it. The sect would support these returning secular disciples with huge wealth in the secular world, so that these servants could establish their own family and influence as soon as possible. At the same time, this gave them a long-term business, of course, how to maintain, it depends on how they operated. All these slaves who have been released had an additional task, to do everything possible to secretly search and recruit qualified young people for the sect. They would only pretend to be in contact with those who were tested and would never be found to have a deliberate behavior. According to their returns, the sect would promptly arrange formal disciples to bring these outstanding children to the sect. Of course, all of this was to be done in secret and no one could know except the core disciples who were responsible for the execution and the people themselves. In the 8 months that Yang Chen was waiting for Gongsun, the sect had arranged for at least a dozen loyal slaves. These slaves were also carefully selected with outstanding ability to work, their loyalty to the sect, and families with influence, so if they do suddenly rise, it would not be too suspicious. The return was almost immediate. In just 8 months, according to the method provided by Yang Chen, at least a dozen young people with good qualifications had been found. They also had been secretly taken up to the mountain and were only waiting for when the sect would intentionally open their gate to recruit them as disciples. Thus, justifying their joining of the Puryang Palace. Among the methods provided by Yang Chen for judging their qualifications, the method of judging their postnatal roots was also included. This made the head of the palace and the elders to become doubtful. In this regard, Yang Chen's explanation was that he found something strange and was in the process of testing it. Perhaps after decades of experimentation, it was entirely possible to prove something. Before that, he would not explain it for the time being. It was of great importance, but it must be considered from a long-term perspective. The head of the palace and the elders were remembered how Yang Chen had asked several disciples to change their original cultivation methods and instead practice the methods of 5 elements attribute. This point was most prominent in Gao Yu. Yang Chen did not say exactly what it was, but everyone knew that this was definitely something unique and he was allowed to test it on these future sect's disciples. Everything seemed to be on the right track. If the sect continued at this pace, in another 100 years, it would be enough to build a huge crowd of backup disciples who could compete with the first-class sects. Gongsun finally completed the initial refining of the mountain river geographical map and received it into her sea of consciousness. She then began to nourish the magic weapon which may take even longer than hundreds of years. Wang Yong also completed the refining of the ship and handed it over to Gongsun. For a long time, Wang Yong would accompany Gao Yu in the refining of the dragon's horn flying sword, which was also served as a stage of consolidating his cultivation base after entering the daching stage. After arranging with the head of the palace, Yang Chen took Gongsun and embarked on the journey to collect the 7th metal true essence. In order to hide from the eyes and ears of outsiders, Yang Chen's shuttle was used temporarily and the outside was wrapped in the sea jasper. They only slowed down after they had rushed for at least 2 months. There was some tacit understanding between the two people. On the shuttle, there was enough space for Gongsun to make several delicious dishes for Yang Chen. The warm atmosphere had been spread in the shuttle and Yang Chen it very much. They spoke of some of the matters they faced in their cultivation, some of the matters happening outside, and even talked about the detailed process of fighting with some people they faced. It always made Yang Chen have a feeling of warmth. During this journey, Yang Chen felt comfortable. Unlike his journey with Zhanxian and the activity-filled time with Sun Qingxu, with Gongsun, Yang Chen only felt the familial warmth. To get to the domain of the demon sects, it was necessary to go through the territory of the monster race. The demon and the Dao sects had a direct border with each other, however, it was far from the destination where Yang Chen was going, so it was more convenient to pass through the monster race domain. Fortunately, Yang Chen's shuttle was fast enough and it could be concealed. Generally speaking, he would not alarm any formidable monster. Even if one was alarmed because of the recent easing of relations between the Dao sects and the monster race, no powerful monster would be enraged of their flight over the monster race domain. When Yang Chen entered the monster race territory, he removed the sea jasper. He didn't want to let many people know that he could shield his spiritual awareness at any time he wanted. The whereabouts of the shuttle was easy to see. Especially in the monster race, there were some talented instinctive people, even from hundreds of miles away, they could find Yang Chen and Gongsun Ling's shuttle without using spiritual awareness. There were small accidents though. After being discovered by a few climate-loving monster cultivators, they were blocked. Yang Chen did not entangle with these people and controlled the shuttle to drill into the ground. Though, they could fly in the air with the speed of the shuttle, in the ground they were as slow as a snail, making escaping from their entanglement a breeze. Even while tempering the magic weapon, Gongsun Ling could still clearly perceive the changes in the mountain river geographical map. In the places that they passed, hundreds of miles of terrain would be continually recorded in it. In just a few months, large amounts of information had been added. In the mountain river geographical map, there was also Li Junyu who had lost her mind. She was constantly sacrificially refining it for Gongsun Ling every day. Now Li Junyu had no way of remembering why she was wandering around the sea. She only knew in her mind that she should continue to fly on the vast sea while cultivating. She had almost become an unconscious puppet. With the help of Li Junyu, a master of the wielding stage, Gongsun Ling's time and tempering the geographical map was almost shortened by more than half. The addition of the mountain river geographical map graphics could shorten this process even more. Gongsun Ling soon noticed this and she had begun expecting Yang Chen to travel with her to more places. However, as the two began to enter the domain of the demon sex, the atmosphere turned a little nervous. In addition to the difference in the starting point of thinking between the demon sex and the Tao sex, the biggest point was the difference in their path of cultivation. The Tao path was gradual. After laying the foundation, they slowly strived for a breakthrough. The overall process followed steady development. This kind of cultivation with a firm foundation would be increasingly stable in the later stage. The probability of breakthrough was also very high and the influence of the heart devil was relatively small. However, the path of cultivation for the demon sex was completely different. The Tao sex path was difficult at the beginning and it became easy in the latter stages. Conversely, the demon sex path was easy in the beginning and difficult in the latter stages. From the beginning, the demon sect took the opportunistic way, using all means to obtain their breakthrough, but after they cultivate to a higher realm, due to their unstable foundations, their state of mind would not be strong enough and cause powerful heart devils. Relatively speaking, the cultivation of the demon sex before the wielding stage was much faster than the Tao sex. Almost 90% of the Tao sex cultivators who practiced the same year would not be the opponents of the demon sex cultivators. There would be a large difference in their realm, making it difficult to win against them. But after the wielding stage, the Tao sex would have the advantage. However, this was also a relative conclusion as it only concerns the gap in the realm. If it came to life and death, the demon sect cultivators would act without any hindrances, it was difficult to say who would win. Using the simplest words to describe the characteristics of the demon sex cultivators, one could use the following adjectives: insidious, poisonous and competent fighter. Thus, within the territory of the demon sex, they needed to be very cautious. Yang Chen came here only to collect the 7th metal true essence, and he had nothing to do with the subjugation of the demons to protect the human cultivators' Tao. Gongsun Ling was also on the way to perfect the mountain river geographical map and thus, she did not even have such a thought. Otherwise, two little Jitan stage masters in the domain of the demon sex would not be able to protect the Tao in any case. They would only end up dead. The demon sex domain was also vast in area, while also being different from the Tao sex domain. The spiritual veins existing in this domain were filled with demonic chi. The deeper they went into the domain, the more intense this chi became. Ordinary people, exposed to this chi, would unconsciously start getting influenced. If a Tao sect cultivator absorbs too much demonic chi and did not refine it in time, it would also lead to disaster. This demonic chi would accumulate and once it breaks out, it would lead to powerful heart devils. It was also common for it to rob the cultivators of their lives without them knowing it. If you entered the place with the most powerful demonic chi from the start, it was possible to just explode and die. Both Yang Chen and Gongsun Ling were carefully and silently making way in the domain of the demon sex. Yang Chen did not come here to fight, so he moved stealthily. At present, Yang Chen had not met anyone from the demon sex. He hoped that the situation remained this way. If a possibility arises to collect the 7th metal true essence without letting them know, it would be the best outcome. It was a pity that the situation took a turn for the worst, like the saying, the better the hope, the crueler the reality. The two flew in the direction of the 7th metal true essence for a few days and found many demon sect disciples along the way. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 354. Currently, he was using the shuttle, a magic weapon that didn't have the slightest stain of demonic chi, making it clearly provocative. Yang Chen quickly found a place, quickly put away the shuttle, and then let Gongsun Ling find a black gauze to cover her face, then the two of them, like ordinary demon sex cultivators, continued to hurry on their way. At the beginning, the several demon cultivators who they met occasionally did not talk to each other. Instead, they kept a distance and were careful to guard against everyone. Amongst demon cultivators, there was very little trust. Everyone only had respect for strength, so they did not trust each other. The friends who would be having wine together could be trying to kill each other in the next instant. However, Yang Chen was very clear that the other party seemed to have very obvious hostility towards both of them. This made Yang Chen wonder. Even if it was a demonic cultivator, you couldn't say that strangers would fight and kill each other when they meet. There must be some reason for this. It's just that Yang Chen didn't figure it out for a while, but the other party was careful to keep their distance and not come close to them. Going forward for another 2 days, Yang Chen began to feel strange. Some of the demonic cultivators they encountered before had been on the same road as themselves, but they didn't change their direction even slightly, while maintaining a distance. These demonic cultivators had a cultivation base which was not very high, the highest one was in the middle Jitan stage, and other 3 were at the peak foundation stage. All the way forward, it seemed that people alongside them kept increasing, and the atmosphere increasingly became stranger. Yang Chen didn't want to provoke a reaction, thus, he did not take the initiative. He just followed the flow of people and walked in the direction of the 7th metal true essence. There were already hundreds of people around them, and the situation was already very chaotic. At this time, Yang Chen wanted to grasp an individual to figure out what was happening, but it was necessary to not alarm the demonic cultivators around them. There was also Gongsun Ling with him, so Yang Chen did not want to cause more trouble. He could only hope to go to the destination separately from these people, as they would be busy with a different issue. However, even if Yang Chen did not bother them, it did not mean that the others would tolerate him in this circumstance. Under such circumstances that everyone around them were part of separate parties, Yang Chen and Gongsun Ling's team was very eye-catching among the large crowd around them. Yang Chen, the atmosphere around is not right. Gongsun Ling was also carefully guarding herself, and at this moment, she whispered a reminder to Yang Chen. Yang Chen of course also found the surrounding situation very precarious, he nodded slightly and no longer said anything. An invisible aura from somewhere started spreading, but Yang Chen found the clue immediately. Someone used poison. When some air was breathed in by Yang Chen, he became keenly aware of this. Gongsun Ling who was next to him was slightly shocked and held her breath in silence. No need, it is a very subtle toxic gas, people will only unconsciously decline in strength. Yang Chen dismissed this with a glance. Abi's body blue jade vine only slightly revealed a small tip on his body, and the poison gas around them was swept away. Gongsun Ling certainly believed in the words of Yang Chen, and she let go of her mouth and had the courage to breathe, their actions seemed very normal. Yang Chen's eyes were rapidly scanning the surroundings as he wanted to find out who was doing it. The calm situation did not last long, and soon someone discovered that someone was poisoned and suddenly panicked. Who sneaked attacked? In a blink of an eye, the short-lived peace that was still barely maintained was instantly broken. Dozens of magic weapons quickly blasted into the crowd, regardless of whether it landed on a friend or foe. Yang Chen and Gongsun Ling, at the end of the queue, heard the riot. Gongsun Ling suddenly became alert, and a protective flag was directly arranged by their side, protecting the two completely. They heard pitiful screams in front of them. There were a few guys who obviously had low-level cultivation base in the crowd, and they were still plotted against with this kind of poison. At this moment, they were like meat on a cutting board. The group of about 100 people was reduced to half its strength in an instant. Perhaps Yang Chen and Gongsun Ling, who were 2 masters of the Jitan stage, made the people around little afraid, so those magic weapons in the first wave did not fall on them. It seemed that all the people who had attacked had a common mind, picking the weaklings first. The first to die were those that had low cultivation bases, the foundation stage demonic cultivators. Except for those that had backing of a Jitan realm expert, all the others were dead. There were almost 30 or 40 people left, almost all of them were Jitan stage cultivators. Everyone was in control of their magic weapons, looking for good opportunities to strike. Yang Chen and Gongsun Ling didn't even know why these people suddenly started to attack each other. However, since it was fight, Yang Chen would never be afraid. With a wave of his hand, the blood demon vine flying sword appeared in his hand. In the domain of the demon sex, it was more suitable to use the blood demon vine flying sword. The bloody demon vine's powerful absorption of flesh and blood was very consistent with the demonic cultivator's path. Yang Chen had already discovered that there was an ambush in front of them, but he did not make any moves, he was just waiting for the other party to show up. It seemed that the party had plans to kill them. Yeah, suddenly a burst of laughter came from the front, which made people feel shocked. Yang Chen, Gongsun Ling were unaffected, but there were already a few Jitan realm experts around with their bodies shaking. The voice was getting bigger and bigger, and the people who were shaking seemed to be shaking with increasing intensity. Finally, someone realized that something was wrong and yelled. "What is this poison? Poison? When was the poison used?" A series of flustered sounds, and at least half of the remaining people became flies without heads, screaming around. Whistling, in the darkness ahead, 3 black shadows jumped out in succession and rushed towards the crowd. The 3 black shadows were close to each other. Everyone had seen the appearance of the black shadow, it was 3 monsters that could not be named. At this moment, the monsters were like pets of another person. They rushed to the side of the crowd but did not start fighting. Instead they grabbed bodies and pulled them aside. In front of everyone, they began to wildly eat them. Caracalla, the sound of bones breaking, brought a strange feeling of dread to everyone around. Every time they ate a few mouthfuls, the 3 monsters would look up and look at all the people. Then they continued to look down and eat. Gongsun Ling looked at this scene, and her face became a bit pale, although she was already a master of the Jitan stage, although she had killed before to gain experience, this was her first time seeing such a cannibalistic scene staged before her eyes. The monsters swallowed the bodies as if nothing had happened, but Yang Chen soon found out that something was wrong. After the monsters swallowed the bodies, their eyes began to turn red, which was obviously not a good thing. Sure enough, after swallowing the corpse, it was not enough to satisfy those monsters, so they continued to rush into the crowd, each pulled out a body, and they continued to gnaw on it crazily. Among the people present, in addition to Yang Chen and Gongsun Ling, there were several Jitan realm masters who had not been poisoned. The poisoned people were still shaking with a sinister smile, they didn't know what type of poison it was, which could leave them a group of Jitan realm masters without any resistance. This time, after the monsters swallowed the bodies, their form began to grow rapidly, twice as much as the original. At the beginning, they were already at the size of a normal ox, and this change almost directly made them to become like 3 small meat mountains. Both of their eyes had turned red, like 2 small red lanterns. After swallowing 2 bodies, the 3 monsters separated in 3 directions and slowly pressed against the crowd. A sinister laughter was suddenly heard, and the 3 monsters seemed to have gotten a signal as they rushed towards their respective targets. The most shocking thing was that the Jitan realm demonic cultivators just trembled with laughter and turned out to be like a well-trained group of slaves rushing towards the people around them. They were mixed in the crowd, and everyone was not far away from each other. At first, everyone thought that these people were affected by the poisonous gas and have lost their strength, and so no one had been too careful. This sudden attack surprised everyone. Once they found that something was wrong, they immediately counterattacked them. Although their attention was attracted by the monsters, these demonic cultivators did not completely lose their vigilance. The turn of events was quite shocking, but the counterattack was also unusually sharp. The sound of a flying sword passing through a body came and went instantaneously. After all, those poisoned guys were still poisoned. It seemed that their bodies' reactions were greatly reduced. The attack from the flying sword had almost no reaction from the victim. The 3 monsters were unusually fierce. Although there was flying sword striking their bodies, it seemed that after they had devoured the corpses, their body protection had greatly improved. Only a few injuries could be seen, but none proving fatal. However, the claws of the 3 monsters were very strong, very hard to fight with flying swords. Bang! A group of people rushed up and directly blew themselves. A Jitan realm master's self-destruction, even for a master of the same level, would be very troublesome to deal with it. Not to mention, it was not only a single Jitan realm master self-detonating, but at least 3 or 5 of them. In an instant, more than a dozen people who survived were immediately reduced to meat paste by this explosion, and more than half were killed. There were now only 5 remaining. The 5, of course, included Yang Chen and Gongsun Ling. Her protective array formation was very comprehensive, but even without this formation, Yang Chen would not be hurt by such an explosion. From the beginning to the present, Yang Chen and Gongsun Ling did not do anything, they just stood at the same place with a defensive posture. However, even if they did not do anything, it did not mean that the other party will not target them. At least 5 Jitan masters blew themselves around the 2. The violent explosion even caused Gongsun Ling's protective array to sway a bit. However, the formation's spiritual power was provided by Yang Chen's top-grade spiritual stone. Although the other side's explosion was fierce, it only made the protection strength of the array full rapidly. Though before it depleted, it was supplemented by the top-grade spiritual stone, strengthening it once again. So far, the mastermind had not yet appeared. Yang Chen knew that the other party was hiding in the darkness not far from them and looked at it all with cold eyes. All the attacks were inexplicable and everyone seemed to be a bit strange. Yang Chen was waiting for the other party to take the initiative. In addition to Yang Chen, there were 3 other Jitan masters, but they were entangled by the 3 monsters. Their bodies had different degrees of injuries because of the surrounding Jiten Master's explosion. What made Yang Chen and Gongsun Ling very surprised was that they were clearly at a disadvantage, but they have not lost. Yang Chen looked about with more care, he felt like even if they wanted to escape, they will not be able to. Gongsun Ling certainly saw the anomaly. She was about to remind Yang Chen, but she was stopped by a slight movement of his hand. His eyes just stared at the three monsters and the three Jiten Masters who were fighting. This battle did not last for too long. The three monsters very fiercely watched Yang Chen and Gongsun Ling, showing off their strong fighting power. The protective strength of the monsters was very firm, and the flying words could only leave holes on them. Only one flying sword of a Jiten Master had caused serious damage to one of the monsters. Under this wound, black flesh and blood could be seen. Obviously this Jiten Master's flying sword was also smeared with poison. In the time for a fragrant incense to burn, the battle was decided. The three Jiten Masters all died without exception, and one of the monsters was eventually killed by one at the end, with the remaining two being all bloody. The two monsters began to approach Yang Chen and Gongsun Ling slowly, but stopped not too close. Then they dragged a body and gnawed on it again. After less than half of the food was eaten, the injuries on their bodies had all recovered. Their eyes were bloodier red, and their figures looked even fatter. If there is nothing, we will leave first. Yang Chen just looked at the two monsters as if nothing had happened and did not care. He had been waiting for them to be fully restored. You want to go? Currently, isn't it already a little late? There was a gloomy voice which sounded in the darkness, it was the guy who made the sinister laugh before. But the voice of the guy, the two monsters, which had obviously recovered and were even more powerful, had already set off in an attacking posture. Whether sooner or later, if I want to go, I will leave. Yang Chen just responded faintly. With only these two, do you think you can keep us here? If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 355. Just by relying on a protective array, you don't even dare to come out. The sound of the voice was full of disdain, it seemed that the person despised Yang Chen and Gongsun Ling for hiding in the formation. The coward hide in the tortoiseshell but feels smug inside. As you wish. Yang Chen took 2 steps forward and walked out of the scope of the formation directly. The enemy hidden in the dark suddenly rejoiced. If Yang Chen and Gongsun Ling stayed in the formation, he really had no way to eliminate them. Even the power of 5 Jiten Masters detonation could not hurt this formation. It was even strong enough to protect them from it. His words were just to provoke the two so they would come out of the formation. Yang Chen and the two had been in the formation, the enemy was estimated to not be able to harm them, but only could retreat. Now Yang Chen was successfully entrapped as he had come out of the formation. Even if only Yang Chen came out alone, it would weaken the group of 2 by half, which would be worth it. You are willing to send yourself to death, I will fulfill that wish for you. The hidden man snorted and did not have to give any instructions. The 2 monsters who had been eyeing them covetously now turned into 2 black streaks of light and instantly rushed towards Yang Chen. 2 monsters, 2 directions, regardless of Yang Chen's resistance of the other side, he must have been regarded as a dangerous opponent. Moreover, the power of the monsters was secretly controlled by someone who was deeply reassured. After devouring 2 Foundation Realm Masters' bodies and a body of a Jiten Master, the power of the beasts had soared to the peak of the Jiten realm. If it was not for the fact that for the time being, their power had reached their maximum potential and could no longer be increased temporarily, the owners of the monsters would definitely control them to devour several other bodies of the Jiten Masters lying around. The bodies of Jiten Masters were not few here. Although Yang Chen seemed to be physically strong, he was only a normal early Jiten stage master. By relying on Gongsun Ling's formation could they resist the power of the 5 Jiten Masters' self-destruction. At least the owner of the monsters was thinking along these lines, whether it was the dour demon sex, the cultivator's strength could not be seen by the outward appearance of their bodies. Based on this point, in the eyes of the monster owner, Yang Chen came out because of his provocation. According to this judgment, a person who can't control himself and was irked to act with a single sentence was estimated to be immature. Similarly, he was not worried about Yang Chen's partner Gongsun Ling as well. At the moment when the 2 monsters striked, the owner of the monsters even pictured Yang Chen getting torn to pieces by his 2 pets. One of the monsters had died, but they killed more than 100 people. His demonic heart had also been promoted by a level, so he had even more confidence in his actions. When he thought of the benefits of being able to get such a thing, even if the owner of the monster was hidden in the dark, he couldn't help but raise his mouth and reveal a smile. The 2 monsters were attacking from the left and the right. Yang Chen held the blood demon vine sword in his right hand and he made a random forward strike, which easily pierced the bloody mouth of a monster. His left hand also did not remain idle, when the big hand stretched out, he grabbed the claws of the monster. Originally these two actions seemed to have no threat to the two monsters and could even be said that Yang Chen was seeking his own death. The claws of the wicked beast had already proved in the previous battle that even after facing flying swords, they remained safe and sound. But Yang Chen actually used his bare hands to grasp them, wasn't it to seek his own death? As for saying that a sword stabbed into the mouth of a monster was very insignificant. The resilience of the beasts was very formidable and the defense was also excellent. Even if his mouth was not as strong as the outer skin protection, the flying sword could not easily piece it. Seeing Yang Chen's response, the monster owner had confirmed that Yang Chen was a rookie who had been protected by his elders and had just been allowed to gain experience. Even if he didn't know anything about the monsters, after so many people died in front of him, if he didn't know how to learn, then death was what he deserved. The monster owner could not help but once again raise his mouth, revealing a sneer. But this time, this smirk did not even last until his mouth was up to its highest point. Only that it turned to shock. The left hand grabbed a claw of one of the monsters but did not get stopped by its strength. The left arm pulled with force and the monster's arm was forcefully twisted and turned into a big circle. The beast that was caught by the claws, with Yang Chen's hand drawn circular action, also involuntarily rotated and thrown into the air. A bit further ahead, it heavily slammed on the ground. The process may be very simple, but a monster with the size of many cows gathered together was caught with one hand, thrown into the air and smashed to the ground far away, turned the atmosphere to shocking to the extreme. Boom. The huge body naturally had massive mass. The body of the monster was slammed on the ground, directly compressing the ground into a large pit. The bang came along with a burst of cracking sounds, it was the bones of the monster, and it was not known how many roots were broken. However, with the one hand here, the sound of the monster on the ground was completely different. The beast on Yang Chen's right-hand side, the blood demon vine flying sword, had only the tip of the sword into the mouth of the monster, expectedly nothing should have happened. Even if the sword tip of the flying sword was sharp, it could just make a small hole in the beast's mouth. The problem was that the beast that was stabbed stopped in an instant. The huge body suddenly came to a standstill, this strange situation was really impossible to keep calm about. But this was not the most surprising thing. The most terrible thing was that the monster that calmed down, in an instant, the flesh on its whole body jerked inwardly. In less than a moment, it became as skinny as a skeleton. The blood demon vine sword was taken out in his hand and Yang Chen looked down at the huge monster that had been thrown in front of his eyes. He shook his head slightly and stabbed the sword. In a blink of an eye, the two monsters became two piles of dead bones and there were no signs of life. Yang Chen lightly pulled out the blood demon vine sword. After taking it, he sneered in the direction of the hidden owner of the monsters in the darkness, the swallowing of flesh and blood was only this much, their strength is still shallow. Yang Chen's words instantly ignited the anger of the monster's owner. His two pets were killed by Yang Chen's two sword strikes, and the anger of the monster owner has begun to burn. The latter sentence completely burned his anger to the extreme. Although Yang Chen's means of killing the monsters was horrifying and he panicked, but the monsters were only a means for him, not his actual strength. Yang Chen turned out to be such a provocative person. Today, Yang Chen must be killed by him in any way possible. Pang. A black smog suddenly shrouded Yang Chen. The bones of the two beasts next to him, on exposure to the smoke, made a squeaky sound and began to quickly melt. The poisonous black smoke even shrouded Gongsun Ling's protective array. The other party was obviously trying to kill Yang Chen and Gongsun Ling this way. However, this highly toxic black smoke was an excellent supplement to Abi's body, the blue jade vine in the medicine garden. The soft vines quickly shrouded this large smoke cloud and to quickly absorb it. The owner of the monsters hidden in the dark watched the poisonous smoke suddenly being absorbed by many green vines. Although he did not recognize the jade vine at a glance, but he knew that this was definitely something that could detoxify the surroundings. However, if Yang Chen thought that his means was only poisonous smoke, then it would be a big mistake. The mouth of the monster owner cracked open again and a silent sneer appeared on his face. Rumble. As Yang Chen was paying attention to Gongsun Ling being invaded by the poisonous smoke, his sea of consciousness was shocked several times, startling him. Did the other party have the means to attack his spiritual awareness? Among the black smoke, it seemed to also hide invisible creatures, but even Yang Chen's spiritual awareness had not found any clues about them. Being so confused, his sea of consciousness shook again. Yang Chen suddenly understood. Soul-devouring technique, this was estimated to be the opponent's trump card. No wonder the previous Jiden masters knew that they would not be able to escape if they stayed behind. At that time, Yang Chen had seen some abnormalities and now he finally understood the other party's means. It was clear with the monsters and the Jiden masters' self-destruction attacks, the soul-devouring technique was used, provoking those peculiar reactions in the other Jiden masters. As for those self-destructive Jitan masters, it should be that after the poisoning, they were also involuntarily implanted with the soul-devouring technique. Looking at the opposite party's trump cards, it could be predicted that he could control dozens of Jitan masters at the same time. Seemingly he had good proficiency in soul-devouring technique. However, in the face of Yang Chen's sea of consciousness, even if it was at a high standard, it would still could not enter. Yang Chen's sea of consciousness had been condensed to the point that people couldn't even start to imagine. Even if the other party controls a few soul-devouring catalysts, they couldn't even open a little hole in his sea of consciousness. After 3 attacks, the other party seemed to have some misgivings. Yang Chen's heart moved, and suddenly he took the initiative to let go of his sea of consciousness, waiting for the next attack using the soul-devouring technique. Sure enough, the 4th attack seemed to have concentrated the other side's full strength. Bang! More than a dozen illusory shadows directly rushed into Yang Chen's sea of consciousness. The shadow that rushed into the sea of consciousness quickly showed its original shape. It appeared as a dozen or so identical persons. As it was only in the sea of consciousness, so everything was a simulation of the spiritual awareness, not real persons. But this had already represented that at least a dozen soul-devouring catalysts have entered the sea of consciousness of Yang Chen, and then these have begun to course destruction. The biggest feature of the soul-devouring technique was that after the soul-devouring catalyst rushed into the sea of consciousness and devoured the soul of the other party, controlling of the body could be achieved through it. The enemy was very skilled with soul-devouring technique. It had more than a dozen soul-devouring catalysts, and each had different behavior. They were completely in battle but not in chaos. It was not known how many people he used this move to plot against. It was a pity that he had now met Yang Chen. With his incomparably condensed sea of consciousness, the dozen shadows could not cause any harm to his sea of consciousness. Yang Chen was so eager to look at the dozens of soul-devouring catalysts in his sea of consciousness that his face showed a smile. If the other party first noticed that, then he would have moved to escape immediately. But now, since the opponent's soul-devouring catalyst had entered his sea of consciousness, it was impossible for him to walk away freely. After the successful implementation of the soul-devouring technique, the growing soul-devouring catalysts could control the opponent's body. At the same time, if he did not succeed, he could also grow the soul-devouring catalyst to a point, but this time, it was obvious that he hit an iron plate. When more than a dozen soul-devouring catalysts rushed into Yang Chen's sea without any hindrance, the owner of the monsters also thought it was worthwhile. But when he discovered that the soul-devouring catalysts were unable to shake the other side of the sea of consciousness, he noticed that something was wrong. It was a pity that he found out a little too late. The soul-devouring catalyst could control opponents, which meant that it was closely related to his own sea of consciousness. Once he couldn't control the target, it meant that he had to suffer from a backlash. Yang Chen used the bloody demon vines in his sea of consciousness and easily smashed most of the soul-devouring catalysts. Even in the sea of consciousness, the blood demon vine seemed to retain the powerful characteristics of swallowing flesh and blood, but it only engulfed the souls that the enemy sent. After consuming a dozen or so successively, the blood demon vine seemed to have been sufficiently nourished. It seemed to have become even more powerful. Yang Chen's body also experienced a pleasant feeling. Now there was only one soul-devouring catalyst left. It had also been swallowed by the blood demon vines, but it was spit out half dead. Keeping this soul-devouring catalyst was to spare the other person's life and get to know all the happenings from his mouth. After coming to the demon sex domain, Yang Chen had not communicated with any cultivators here. Some of the situations here were not very clear to him. Just like these days, the consistent gathering of demonic cultivators, Yang Chen needed to know the reason. This demon was the most appropriate person to ask about the situation here. His spiritual awareness had long locked in on the position of this demon's body. He did not have to make any twists and turns, so he calmly went to the other side. Originally relying on powerful pets, poisons and the soul-devouring technique, this demon had almost no disadvantages in encountering an enemy, but this time, he was like a dead dog to Yang Chen. More than a dozen soul-devouring CATA lists had been swallowed up, with the consequent backlash he now could not escape. He even did not have the strength to stand up. When Yang Chen picked him up, he was as soft as mud. "Don't kill me. Please, don't kill me." Although his body was already soft and he couldn't move, this demon had not forgotten to beg for mercy. He cried out immediately when he was caught. He had no similarity with the person who was just earlier hiding in the dark and plotting against hundreds of people. How can he be so shameless? Gongsunling was very disgusted with this. She despised him. Simply, he will do anything to survive among these demon sects. Yang Chen had seen a lot of demonic cultivators, so he smiled and explained, then turned his face to the demon on the ground. "I really want to know what happened recently. Why are there so many people going in this direction?" Yang Chen's dry smile was directed at him, and, "Why did you attack?" If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 356. Pretending to be Yang Chen's concubine. The last soul-devouring catalyst was now in the hands of Yang Chen. If he didn't want to die, he could only tell Yang Chen everything he knew. The catalyst obviously didn't want to die. Hearing Yang Chen's question, he quickly replied with what he wanted to know. After listening to his words, Yang Chen and Gongsun could not help but face each other in dismay. Yang Chen's direction was their goal. There, a huge mining area had shown up under the ground since a few months ago, carrying a strong 7th metal aura. There were some experienced demonic cultivators that had thought that this was a sign of a demonic weapon that would soon be unearthed. Undoubtedly, this demonic weapon was of the metal attribute. Although no one knew which demonic weapon it was, they knew that it was definitely unspeakably powerful weapon from the aura that had permeated in the area. After some demonic cultivators calculated, they said that the time till the demonic weapon would unearth would be within 1 or 2 months. There had been countless masters gathering there, waiting for the weapon to be unearthed and stanch it for themselves. In order to compete for the demonic weapon, everyone was making their moves and a river of blood was flowing because of the mounting death toll. Examples of such a situation could also be found in the Dao sects. This time it seemed that there was a master who had made a statement that they are not allowed to kill each other in the mining area. If anything goes wrong or if there was any disobedience, the offenders would be executed. As Yang Chen went towards the mine, naturally due to the situation, others around him thought of taking advantage. As everyone was of the same mind, they were all hostile and cautious along the way. However, because there was that warning from a master, so no one dared to do it. The person in front of Yang Chen was taking this opportunity to ambush him with poison and the soul-devouring technique. He had been twice successful before, unfortunately the third time he met Yang Chen and Gongsun. If Yang Chen and Gongsun did not appear, his harvest would naturally be quite rich, the wealth of so many people, with the improvement of his own soul-devouring technique and the improvement of his pet's abilities, the benefits were self-evident. If he knew that Yang Chen was so strong, he would have never done it. If he succeeded in the front and escaped, Yang Chen might not have cared about him. Unfortunately, there was no such thing as a regret pill in this world. Yang Chen and Gongsun did not think that there would be such a thing happening there. It was quite normal for a certain demonic weapon to be unearthed. It was not surprising as there were often some magical weapons in the Dao sects that after absorbing sufficient spiritual power would break out of the earth. The problem was that this happened when Yang Chen planned to collect the 7th metal true essence and the location was in the mining area too. Even more coincidentally, the demonic weapon actually had a strong 7th metal aura. It was difficult to say whether it was related to the pulse of 7th metal true essence left by the golden star of the sun, Li Changjing or not. Yang Chen knew that there were already a lot of demonic cultivators gathering in the mining area. If he and Gongsun were there like this, it would pose unnecessary danger. Yang Chen was not afraid for himself, but now that Gongsun was around, he would not let his senior apprentice sister suffer any harm. It could not be helped, he also hesitated whether he should temporarily avoid that place, wait for the demonic weapon to unearth, then slowly go there to investigate, or should he face the difficulties and participate in the unearthing event. If it was certain that this demonic weapon had nothing to do with the 7th metal true essence, Yang Chen would not hesitate and would choose to avoid it. He himself was very strong, but he was not been arrogant towards the invincible world, he alone couldn't flatten all the demonic sects. But now it was unknown whether this demonic weapon was related to the 7th metal true essence or not. On one hand, Yang Chen was not willing to give up 7th metal true essence, but on the other hand, he was worried about the safety of Gongsun. He was willing to put Gongsun into the space of the medicine garden, but this kind of protection would lose their original intention of letting her gain experience. It will also make it difficult for Yang Chen. It's better for us to look at it. With Yang Chen's hesitation, Gongsun naturally saw it. She was also a very intelligent person. She naturally understood Yang Chen's hesitation and took the initiative to say. It will be dangerous. Yang Chen said. There is a master there, restraining people to not kill each other. There shouldn't be any danger towards us if we just want to look at it. Gongsun laughed and said, but there was also a desire in her open eyes. You and I don't have the slightest demonic kai. Once exposed, it would be very dangerous. Yang Chen still had some concerns, but looking at Gongsun look, he couldn't bear to blow away her hopes, he could only follow, okay, but you have to listen to me about everything. Gongsun had been going out to gain experience several times, but it was the first time that she really came to the domain of the demon sex, so she was very excited. When Yang Chen said that, she naturally agreed completely. The cultivation bases of the two did not have the slightest demonic kai. This was very easy for Yang Chen to solve. There were also many people in the demonic sects who would cultivate some superficial cultivation methods, but they were very sinister and deceitful. Yang Chen could disguise as these people at any time, and the blood demon vine flying sword in his hand was enough to dress himself up as a demonic cultivator. Was there any Tao sect's disciples that would have magic weapons that could swallow flesh and blood? Apart from the disciples of the demonic sects, he still couldn't think of any who had such a vicious flying sword. It was very hard to disguise Gongsun Ling though, but it did still have a solution. Yang Chen thought about it and came out with two methods. One was to let Gongsun Ling disguise as Yang Chen's puppet, claiming that he refined a disciple of the Tao sects into his puppet could better fit his demonic cultivator identity. The other method was somewhat embarrassing, to let Gongsun Ling disguise as Yang Chen's concubine. For paired cultivation, the demonic sects were much more open than the Tao sects. Even many demonic cultivators just used this pretense to satisfy their erotic heart. As long as Gongsun Ling acted intimately with Yang Chen, she could easily pass. What made Yang Chen surprised was that after hearing these two methods, Gongsun Ling only hesitated a little before choosing the second option. Despite the redness on her face, she would rather appear in the eyes of outsiders as Yang Chen's concubine. Even after Yang Chen proposed this method, she couldn't help but jump a few times and seemed to be very happy with the situation. Since his senior apprentice sister had agreed, Yang Chen certainly had no misgivings. However, the necessary preparations would not be forgotten. Yang Chen, of course, would not ignore the pile of corpses in front of him and the enemy who plotted against him. Since he wanted to keep the situation under wraps, he simply would not leave any traces of it here. All the corpses were thrown to the roots of the bloody vines for their consumption. The bones left became flower fertilizer. Yang Chen also did not leave the attacker behind. After asking a lot of things and getting to know the situation, he also became the food of the bloody vine. Yang Chen in fact did not need to get rid of him. Even if someone saw him, there would be no clues pointing towards him. Yang Chen made Gongsun Ling change her dress. As a demonic cultivator's concubine, naturally she could not dress like this. Yang Chen could only take out the set of fascinating clothes that were prepared for Wan Qian and her apprentices. As soon as she saw these clothes, Gongsun Ling began blushing again. Although she had been practicing Mystery Yin Yang Heart Sutra with Yang Chen, but it was done decently. These kinds of clothes that almost revealed the body completely could only be called cloth strips. She was embarrassed to put them on. Don't talk about putting them on, just looking at them made her face red. However, Gongsun Ling had a different kind of impulse. It seemed that if Yang Chen was willing, she was willing to wear such clothes for him to see. However, it was limited to him alone, she really did not want to wear it for anyone to see. Gongsun Ling was not happy about this. This is worn inside. Yang Chen certainly knew what Gongsun Ling was looking at, and he hurriedly explained, the outside is still wrapped tightly, these are the styles of dressing here, and we can't reveal any flaws. After a few words, Gongsun Ling once again felt her face heating up, but she now knew that these were undergarments, and thus felt much better. In fact, don't mention Gongsun Ling not being willing, if she wore those clothes by herself, Yang Chen himself would not agree. How could he agree to let other men see the body of his senior apprentice sister? If she wanted to pretend to be Yang Chen's concubine, she must follow the custom of the demonic sects. A lot of demonic cultivators like to collect beauties, and Yang Chen was walking with a beautiful girl, which was considered very normal. Of course, she should wear clothes, but it also came with a slightly translucent tulle. With this tulle, most of the body could be covered. However, Yang Chen was still unwilling to make people take advantage of it. Outside, he gave Gongsun Ling a big cloak and wrapped all her exquisite body inside. In this way, Gongsun Ling was wrapped in a cloak and her face was covered with a black crepe. Although it was somewhat nondescript, it was the norm here. But posing as Yang Chen's concubine, there were still some things she needed to do. At the very least, Gongsun Ling must keep a kind of intimate contact with Yang Chen. This was not the kind of mutual embrace feeling that Gongsun Ling and Yang Chen had shared when they were having spiritual awareness paired cultivation. As she was already Yang Chen's woman, she was completely relaxed and let him feel intimate with her. Between the two, they must be like honey and oil. This was very difficult for Gongsun Ling. When the two were on the road, they would have to quickly practice this kind of tacit understanding so that both would become used to such intimacy quickly. What surprised Yang Chen was that Gongsun Ling quickly grasped that feeling. Whether it was relying on him to act like a spoiled brat or to feed him a handful of delicacies with her slender hands, all these actions showed her extreme dependency on Yang Chen. This was another kind of feeling that made Yang Chen feel sweet in his heart. It seemed that the two had really become husband and wife. Gongsun Ling seemed to be happier. After a few deliberate efforts along the way, their subsequent actions already became natural. It seemed that Gongsun Ling was not only excellent in her cultivation, but also a genius at this. When Yang Chen was sighing that Gongsun Ling was very savvy, he did not know that she was feeling very joyful. In the heart of Gongsun she and Yang Chen had undergone the highest mystery yin-yang heart sutra spiritual awareness paired cultivation, thus, she had regarded herself as his woman. In fact, at an earlier time, Gao Yu said that when Gongsun helped Yang Chen to complete the paired cultivation, she herself gave Gongsun such a status. Gongsun knew that no matter whether it was Gao Yu, Zhanxian or Sun Qingxu, who all were entangled with Yang Chen. He had not yet given a solemn promise to all of them, except for Gao Yu. However, now there was a chance for her to become Yang Chen's concubine in front of so many people. Even if it was Gao Yu, it seemed that she had not experienced such happiness. Because of Gongsun Yang Chen seemed to have become free. Along the way, from the beginning of the interplay to the natural relations later, they did not spend too much time. After a while, Yang Chen's hand had been carrying Gongsun by her waist while he flew on his flying sword. Gongsun body relied on Yang Chen's body, and the happiness on her face showed that she was enjoying this feeling. Yang Chen couldn't help but feel excited as the beautiful and delicate body of his senior apprentice sister leaned on his body. Even if he was a man with a heart of stone, he would still feel excited. The fake drama along the way was done well, with the soft jade body on his side, Yang Chen almost felt that it was impossible for him to restrain himself. Fortunately, Yang Chen's spiritual awareness was strong enough and he could keep himself in check. He knew that it was not really a good time for him to be distracted. He finally sighed in his heart and made the effort to take both of his hands from her waist and instead hold her in his arms. "Senior apprentice sister, give me some time. After I go back, I will confer with master and take you as my wife." In Gongsun ear, Yang Chen said this sentence without hesitation. "I know that I am greedy, senior apprentice sister. If you don't want to, I won't say anything." "You fool." Sitting on the blood demon vine flying sword, Gongsun was like a well-behaved kitten, shrinking in the arms of Yang Chen, with a happy expression on her face. She closed her eyes, her hands clasped Yang Chen's neck tightly, and she did not want to let go. In flight, Yang Chen held Gongsun in his arms, and from time to time, he often approached the tender face of Gongsun to say a sentence in a low voice, which led to Gongsun frequent laughter. Her body would often twist and turn in Yang Chen's arms for a long time. To the onlookers, they seemed to be a pair of arrogant lovers. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 357. After telling Gongsun about Wan Qian's several female apprentices, she had no good feelings for them. Therefore when Yang Chen summoned out the 5 maids at the peak of Jidan stage, it became apparent. Because it was related to the head of the palace and the Blue Cloud sect's elder Wan Qian, Yang Chen was only telling Gongsun about the apprentices of Wan Qian for the time being. As for Wan Qian, she was not mentioned. After the emergence of the 5 charming and attractive maids, Yang Chen and Gongsun appearance were suddenly different. Gongsun exquisite ship became the flying tool for them, and Yang Chen took Gongsun to sit on the large deck, surrounded by 5 female slaves, wearing sly gauze, with a very charming expression on their faces. From time to time there would be a female slave who picked up the wine, or peeled the skin of the profound yang fruit, to put it into the mouth of Yang Chen. Making he enjoy the extravagant feeling. The most unexpected thing for Yang Chen was Gongsun who even enlivened the role even more than him. From time to time, she would hug and kiss him, or she would make him drink wine through her mouth, making him burst into a fascinating mood. Along with the stunned glamorous romance, the beautiful boat flew all the way and soon approached Yang Chen's destination, the huge mining area. The 9 secluded iron mines in the demon domain were very famous. It was not a desolate area, there were many people who were mining ore here and had formed a small town. Because this time there was a demonic weapon which was going to be unearthed here, there were a lot of demonic cultivators who had arrived here, but the place where the 7th metal aura breathed out was not in this small town, but hundreds of miles in the north. The 9 secluded demon iron ore area was very large. According to the detection of some masters, various metal mines occupied almost tens of thousands of miles. It was because of this that Yang Chen could confirm that there was a condition for the formation of the 7th metal true essence, instead of the golden star of the sun, preparing one himself. Diverse metal mines belonged to the 7th metal, and the huge distribution area, just like the 10,000 tree forest, had conditions to produce the 7th metal true essence. As long as there was a delicate collection formation, it would be easy to naturally gather it as it was formed by these metal mines. This was just like what was done in the Barren Valley by the Greatest Heaven sect, but the area of the Barren Valley was not comparable to the 10,000 tree forest in this place. The time of operation of the Greatest Heaven sect was too short to gather a large amount of the 5th earth true essence. Yang Chen's goal was not the demonic weapon, at least the direct goal was not that, so he took Gongsun and went straight to the small town. The demonic cultivators on the road had increased. Even if everyone was hostile to each other, no one dared to attack wantonly. In particular, Yang Chen now put on a posture of playing with beautiful women, which was very arrogant. On the contrary, it made the people more cautious and they dared not make any movements for fear of angering the power behind Yang Chen. A young man in the early Jidan stage could play with a beautiful girl in same early Jidan stage and there were also another 5 female slaves at the peak Jidan realm. This was not something that he could have accomplished alone. Although the demonic cultivators did not dislike women, it was not every kind of women that they dared to touch. If their control over them was not strong enough, they may get bewitched instead, making their beauty not be worth a candle. But Yang Chen dared to be so bold, benevolent and affectionate with Gongsun in public. Obviously, she had been conquered. The female slaves at the peak Jidan realm perfectly explained this point. No one with open eyes would dare to provoke him, who was likely to have a strong background. The woman had the same cultivation base as Yang Chen, but she was so submissive, even the maids who were more powerful than him were so respectful to him. People in the demonic domain rarely believed in love, they only believe in strength. Since Yang Chen's strength was not enough to shock Gongsun and the 5 female slaves, the performance of theirs must be because they were afraid of the forces behind Yang Chen. There was absolutely no doubt in them that Yang Chen and Gongsun belonged to one of the demonic sects. Only the demonic sects could accomplish something like this. Although Yang Chen and his party had been very blatantly high profile, it was not easy to provoke them, but some people did not believe this scheme. When the ship slowly flew to a mountain pass hundreds of miles from the small town, 2 strange figures directly appeared in front of the ship. "Kid, no matter who you are, you have to pay for the road fees in the 9 secluded demon iron ore area." When the 2 guys suddenly appeared, one of them was a fat guy who shouted. The second figure was abnormally thin, he looked pale, just like a walkable skeleton, he just had a thin layer of skin. The other person who talked was the opposite. Standing there, he was clearly a round meatball, and the fat on his face almost numbed his 5 senses. Both of them wore a black soap robe, embroidered with a white pirate-like skull on the back of the chest. It was not known which martial arts sector power it belonged to. While screaming, the eyes of the 2 people seemed to swim like fish. They looked around on the figure of the 5 maids, and they also showed a burst of lust on their faces. When was this rule made? Yang Chen did not seem to see the embroidered designs of the 2 men, while burying his head in the chest of Gongsun, he asked disdainfully. "This is the rule set by my ancestors last month." The thin man's eyes swept the girls and he suddenly said, "If you don't want to pay with money, then you can use your maids to compensate." "If I don't want to?" Yang Chen looked up from Gongsun neck and glanced at the 2. He suddenly asked, "Isn't it not forbidden to commit murder here? Can you kill me?" "No killing is allowed here, that is the rule set by my ancestors." The fat man replied triumphantly, "If you don't keep the rules of my ancestors, then don't blame us for being unkind." The meaning of his words were that the rules were theirs, naturally they would not be counted as violators, they also had the final say. If Yang Chen knew his limits, he should know what to do. Sure enough, Yang Chen nodded, "I know what to do." When Yang Chen's voice fell, Wan Qian's 5 female apprentices had already flown up like butterflies and with a flash, surrounded both the fat and the thin men. The 2 of them looked at each other. The fat man seemed to have seen something strange. He laughed, "What do you want to do? Do you know what the consequences of this will be?" "I don't know." Yang Chen shook his head directly and said to the 2 men, "I want to see what happens when I move my hand." Brush. 5 flying swords brushed and danced in the air. The extreme charm girls formation was initiated by the 5 women at the peak Jidan stage, their fighting power was very strong. It was even comparable to 2 Yuaning ancestors. The fat man and the thin man were just at the middle Jidan stage. They thought that by relying on the name of their own ancestors, they could frighten Yang Chen, but they did not expect to be besieged by him instead. The extreme charm girls formation was originally a demonic path formation, and the 5 women clothes also exposed their enticing bodies for all to see. The illusion was very enticing, enough to seize the heart and soul of both. Not to mention the middle Jidan stage, even if they were at the mid-Yuning stage, with a bit of carelessness, they would fall into this illusion and wouldn't be able to extricate themselves easily. The 2 guys were lustful, otherwise they would not be troubled by Yang Chen. As soon as the formation was launched, the eyes of the 2 men were charmed. The surrounding world seemed to have only the lurid images of the women. They were instantly fascinated and acted like buffoons. Gongsun was outside the formation, and obviously she saw their performance. She was an array cultivator, so seeing an array like this, she couldn't help but look at it with shame. She leaned on Yang Chen's body and felt her body getting hotter. Looking at it for some time, Gongsun did not dare to look at it again. She hurriedly retracted her head into Yang Chen's arms, but still her heart kept jumping. Though she already regarded herself as Yang Chen's woman, she still almost indulged in the depravity. Although it would be a pleasure for Gongsun to hand herself over to Yang Chen, but she was not willing to do it at this time. With shame, she could only shrink herself into his arms like a frightened ostrich with her body slightly shivering. Yang Chen could of course feel the trembling beautiful jade body in his arms. The extreme charm girl's formation was passed to the 5 women by him, so of course he knew its power. His heart moved, with the posture of the 2 people embracing each other, he reached out his hand on the head of Gongsun, then the highest mystery yin-yang heart sutra was launched, clearing her mind. Gongsun was now in a calm mood, but the fat and the thin men could no longer persist. As soon as the formation was opened, the desires of the 2 of them disappeared, but their eyes remained lost. They were obsessed with the appearance of the 5 women, saliva dripping from their mouths. The 5 women did not kill them, but trapped them. What was really devastating was Yang Chen's blood demon vine flying sword was placed on the belly of the fat man. Soon the fatty became as skinny as his partner at a speed visible to a naked eye. The fat clothes of the fat man became very big in a moment and almost slipped from his shoulders. Yang Chen did not let the thin guy off, the same thing was done to him, this one who was already skin and bones, now became like a skeleton. Although sword cut into their bodies, the fat and the thin men did not die. Yang Chen controlled the blood demon vine flying sword with extreme finesse. It was already like his own arm. How much flesh and blood it absorbed was decided by him. Suddenly suffering from the severe pain, the enchanting scenery disappeared from their eyes and the 2 woke up from the illusion. But after seeing the situation in front of them, they began to panic. Did you really dare to do it? The fat man suddenly turned into a skinny skeleton almost fainting. However, the thin man had not changed much, he couldn't move, but he could still talk. I started, what should I do next? Yang Chen looked at the 2 people and he asked. The 2 had now fully realized that they had hit a large iron plate. Immediately, the tone of the thin man changed, we are just small fries, we were wrong. You have a large heart, please let us 2 unknown soldiers go. Please look at the face of our ancestors and spare our small lives. It was impossible for 2 people not to admit defeat, Yang Chen's gaze was no longer concealing the killing intent in his eyes. The 2 never felt that someone else could just sweep their eyes at random at them and could scare them to this extent. The demonic cultivator had never cared about their face at a critical moment. When it came to life and death, it was normal to ask for mercy. Gongsun seemed to have seen more of such people with no dignity in these few days. She couldn't help but raise her head and look at the 2 with disdain. The ancestors are nearby and they are still waiting for these little ones to report back to them. Please spare this little one's dog life for them. Of course, the fat man did not dare to maintain any arrogance, so he said in a submissive tone. But in the words, there were still some unwilling reminders for Yang Chen that their ancestors were nearby. Aling, how do you think I should handle this? Yang Chen bowed his head and asked Gongsun. He gently touched his face with Gongsun's face, just like lovers. I don't like them. Gongsun did not say how to deal with them, but said her own mind. Immediately, the fat man and the thin man found that Yang Chen looked at them with eyes filled with killing intent with even more determination. His own woman didn't like them, then they had to die. You can't kill us. If you kill us, you will break the rules. The ancestors will not let you go. The thin man sharply discovered the crisis and hurriedly shouted at Yang Chen. Between life and death, he couldn't let him think more, it is not worth to offend our ancestors because of a woman. Will I kill, who knows? Yang Chen sneered, ruthlessly crushing the hope of fat and thin men. Do you really think that I am affected by the rules of your ancestors? The heart of the 2 people sunk again. Subsequently, the blood demon vines pierced the throat of the thin man without mercy, in front of the fat man. The body of the thin man completely turned into a skeleton with nothing left. Forgive me. Spare my life. The fat man finally collapsed, almost screaming out loudly, I am willing to become your puppet, forgive me. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 358. Treasure. Generally speaking, fat people always like to enjoy, especially they liked food, otherwise their body would not become like that. Although cultivators could change their body stature while cultivating, many people still like to maintain certain characteristics and qualities, or because they have to do so. For example, Yang Chen has always been in the image of a robust man. And this fat man was estimated to be the former reason. Both people were very lascivious, the fat guys liked to enjoy. In general, this kind of person was the most afraid of death. Yang Chen was taking a fancy to this point, so he killed the thin man in front of the fat man. The scene of horror suddenly caused the fat man to collapse and he shouted out these words. Living puppet. Good. Yang Chen shouted, I will spare your life. With the collapse of the fat man's own will, Yang Chen soon completed the initial refining of the living puppet. Live puppet, as the name suggests, was a living puppet. Wan Qian's 5 female apprentices belonged to this group. However, they were not considered to be active live puppets in the strict sense. The real activity was to have their own thoughts, but their body was under the control of others. What is this demonic weapon that's going to be unearthed? After controlling the fat man who collapsed, Yang Chen directly asked the question he most wanted to know. According to the ancestor's guess, it should be a relic of a predecessor. The fat man almost did not hesitate and he said what he knew. Under such circumstances, he could not have any concealment at all. I don't know the reason why it is deeply buried in the 9 secluded iron mine area. It has been invaded by the Kai of the 7th metal for thousands of years. Now it naturally sacrificially refined, it will become a rare life source demonic weapon when unearthed. Listening to the fat man's narrative, Yang Chen's heart suddenly calmed down. If it was only a relic of a predecessor, it should not be related to the 7th metal true essence. And the fat man did not mention a 7th metal true essence, he just mentioned the 7th metal Kai, the two have a big difference. Yang Chen would never believe that the ancestors of the fat man could not differentiate between them. Who is the ancestor? Yang Chen asked again. The ancestor is the white bone old ancestor, and some people call him the white bone old demon. The fat man heard the question and he answered without hesitation. The white bone old ancestor is the netherworld sect elder, he was the first person in this place, he was the one who banned killing here. Rules? Does he also obey it? Yang Chen sneered and asked. The ancestor have secretly killed a lot of people, all want to get that demonic weapon. The fat man replied honestly. Yang Chen almost guessed this kind of behavior that he set the rules and destroyed it in the back. He didn't even have to look at the performance of the ancestor, he could guess by means of looking at the fat man and the thin man. What other experts have appeared here? Yang Chen asked again. It was impossible for the elders of the other demonic sects not to be interested in the demonic weapon that could be desired by the elder of the netherworld sect. I heard that Madame Fangu of the Yin Yang demon sect said that she would come over and the people of the limitless demon sect also are interested in it. The fat man said quickly. But I have never seen them appear myself and some rogue cultivators have also come. Now the one with the highest cultivation base should be the white bone old ancestor. After asking a few things about the 9 secluded iron mines, he felt that there was nothing else more to understand. Yang Chen directly sent the fat man to the site of the bloody vine, becoming a flower fertilizer. If he kept the fat man, although he would not tell others what he was, but once he showed up, he could be recognized by others. Maybe it would bring trouble to Yang Chen and Gongsun Ling. If Yang Chen was alone, he may not care, but since Gongsun Ling was on his side, of course he does not hesitate to make the fat man disappear. The ship was still in the middle of the small town of the 9 secluded demon iron mine, in an extravagant arranging, no one would doubt whether Yang Chen was a junior of the demon sects, everyone's mind would be on another matter, that was, guessing the origin of Yang Chen. He was very extravagant, the ship was not a low-grade artifact, 5 female slaves in the peak Jidan stage, plus a Jidan stage concubine, this was just a junior in the early Jidan stage, it was impossible for him to have such strength to do it by himself. The only explanation was that Yang Chen was a younger generation descendant of an extraordinary person. What everyone was guessing now was who this person was. Just looking at the atmosphere of this boat, there was no demonic Kai, if it was not that Yang Chen has been swaying on it with a beauty in his embrace, they would have thought that it was definitely a magic weapon. The ability to be so arrogant in the demon domain seemed to fit the characteristics of several old devils. Perhaps if the demonic path has been practiced to the extreme and the legendary old devils seem to have reached the realm of returning to the natural state, refining such a magic weapon was really normal. No one dared to come forward and take the initiative to engage with Yang Chen. No matter what they guessed, what kind of old demon was behind Yang Chen, it seemed that they are not easily provoked. The old devils were all very suspicious, once their younger generation are approached suspiciously, it was not known what would happen. Because of this thought, Yang Chen has been very clean and free from harassment since he entered the city. This made Yang Chen very surprised, but also somewhat satisfied. The less contact they had with outsiders, the less chance there was that they could be exposed. Although the small town was formed only by miners of the 9 secluded iron mines, but all of them were cultivators, and their facilities were very complete. It was simply a huge market, from all kinds of places to the stalls to the auction house, not one thing was lacking. Not only that, but all kinds of high-end shop-ins were almost everywhere. Many people in the demon sects like to enjoy and often even make a lot of money for this, and some were the businesses that do this kind of business. Yang Chen would not lose his face as a young master and playboy. After entering the city, he directly found the largest and most luxurious inn, took up the building, and took the Gongsun Ling straight to the lobby of the inn. There were 2 beautiful women in the foundation stage who were waiting to bring Yang Chen to the guest seat. Sitting on the VIP chair in the middle, Yang Chen shouted, "Storekeeper, clear everything, I want to rent this inn." "Best, this is not convenient." The shopkeeper was waiting inside, as soon as he listened to Yang Chen's request, he immediately revealed a distressed expression. "There have been guests who have already come in, and it is inconvenient to clear them out." "What's wrong? Are you afraid that I have no spirit stones to pay the bill? Yang Chen snorted, and a female slave directly threw out a small Qiankan bag and slammed it in front of the shopkeeper. There was no need to ask, there must be a lot of spirit stones in it, otherwise it would not be packed with a Qiankan bag. Breg. The shopkeeper was still in a dilemma when a burst of sweet and charming laughter came from outside. Who is this young master that want to drive out everyone including the slave? When the laughter came out, the face of the shopkeeper showed a relaxed look. It seemed that as long as the person came forward, there would be nothing to worry about. On the other hand, Yang Chen seemed to have changed personally. At first, his face was stunned and his posture suddenly released. His face was still showing a fascinating look, with a smile on his face. His mouth directly said, which elder sister is gracing us with her presence? Your voice is really nice. This whole performance, it was as if a hungry wolf saw a beautiful beauty, he was drooling. Because the performance was so much realistic, even Gongsun, who has been in Yang Chen's arms, was feeling some jealousy and can't help but secretly pinch Yang Chen. Little sister, this can't stop the man's heart. The woman has not yet arrived, but the charming voice has already ringed in the ears of everyone, especially Gongsun. Her look was like she was being directly stared at. When Gongsun would think of the other party's directness, she would have to comment on her little trick. Her own little movements were clearly seen by her. Gongsun once again started blushing. The fragrant wind quickly filled the entire living room. Immediately, a striking woman's model came in from the door, with a look of inviolability on her face, arrogant and unparalleled, but with the performance of just talking was very different. Not only did the body not wear the kind of exposing clothes that was imagined, but the tightly packed palace dress, only slightly on the waist, showing a wonderful and amazing line. Yang Chen's gaze seemed to have been completely attracted by the figure that has come in. He looked at the other person's graceful figure and couldn't turn his eyes. Even Gongsun in his arms did not seem to think that the other party would turn out to be such a beautiful woman. Judging from the voice, they would never think that the other party has such a beautiful and graceful figure. Such a noble temperament was completely different from the image in everyone's mind. What's wrong, won't you ask your elder sister to sit down? The beautiful woman came in and saw Yang Chen completely stunned and couldn't help but ask. When she spoke again, Yang Chen suddenly heard a different flavor in her voice. If the voice heard from outside was debauchery, it was now holy women's voice. Elder sister, please sit down. Yang Chen's performance was almost like a satyr, while his mouth was talking, his body was standing up to welcome her. Gongsun mouth frowned and her hands were holding Yang Chen. The hand did not let go and it hindered his movement. Her kind of behavior was like she was protective of her food, which was particularly obvious in the eyes of everyone. Little sister, men don't like girls who are too jealous. The beautiful woman sat very elegantly. She didn't talk to Yang Chen, but she smiled again at Gongsun and said, you have to be there for him whenever he want, only then can you hold his heart tightly. After the talk, the beauty's gaze turned from Gongsun face to Yang Chen's face. She just glanced at it and said with a smile. Little lover, with 6 stunning beauties around him, but all of them are virgins. Your body has the jade law, it has even reached the 3rd layer. Do you want your elder sister to be dedicated to you? When Yang Chen heard the jade law, his face suddenly changed. This change was seen by the opposite woman, it was realized that she had already guessed the origin of Yang Chen. Gongsun pretending to be Yang Chen's concubine, the biggest problem was that the two have not yet done the deed between a husband and wife, they were all virgins. It's easier to fool ordinary people, but the real masters could still through it easily. However, the cultivation of the jade law mentioned by the beauty was the best explanation for this situation. The cultivation of jade law was a kind of double cultivation demonic art, but it was a double cultivation demonic art that favors the man. After the beginning of the cultivation of the jade law, the man who practiced the cultivation method must take 1 or more glamorous virgins, but he could not take their virginity. Women's cultivation would promote the formation of a large amount of pure yin in the body, and the man was practicing daily by the pure yin that was absorbed by these virgins. The better the qualifications of women who practiced the cultivation method, the greater the benefits to men. Of course, since it was a double cultivation method, it also has a lot of benefits for women. At least one point was that the women's skin would get better and better, and they would become more attractive. When the raising jade law was in the 1st and 2nd layer, it was absolutely forbidden to have sexual intercourse. Otherwise, it would be a waste of all the effort and time put into it, only after the 3rd layer could he experience it. At this time, the woman who he have sexual intercourse with does not necessarily have to be a woman who has cultivated the same cultivation method. When they had sexual intercourse, there would also be huge benefits for both the man and woman. The man would absorb the yin essence of the woman's body, and their skill would advance greatly. Similarly, the man who was abstinent because of practicing the jade law would have great benefits for the woman. Even in many instances, it would be an optimal supplement for women to break through their bottleneck. Not only that, but the biggest advantage to the man who practiced the cultivation method was that their face would not become old. This was a deadly attraction for women, regardless of their level of cultivation. When the opposite party mentioned the Jade Law, Yang Chen was slightly shocked when he heard it, and his heart suddenly calmed down. Without saying a word, with one hand, a ribbon flew out of her sleeve and instantly pulled the neck of the shopkeeper, and her other hand waved lightly, and the two beautiful women at the foundation stage who were waiting fell down. The sound of the shopkeeper's neck breaking was almost instantly heard. Then the woman reacted as if it was nothing remarkable. She smiled and said to Yang Chen, "It's this elder sister being rash, I shouldn't have mentioned it in front of them." The Jade Law was more beneficial to men, but there were countless women who would kill for it. Especially when the integrity of the third layer had been reached, the face not becoming old and the benefits of breaking through theirs realm was enough to make even dashing stage masters tempted. If this news was passed out, Yang Chen would definitely be counted as a rare treasure by countless female devils. Therefore, the opposite beauty did not say anything and directly eliminated all potential informants. As for the 5 women around Yang Chen, they were obviously all potential informants, but it was not easy for her to take care of them. The third layer of the Raising Jade Law was not only the perfect solution to the flaws of Gongsun as a virgin, but also provide her with a best reason for her want to dominate Yang Chen. It was no wonder that Gongsun always relied on Yang Chen's arms, that was, she was afraid of others taking Yang Chen away. I don't know what I should call this elder sister. The beauty just killed in front of him, but Yang Chen does not seem to see it, he was just greedily staring at the beautiful woman whose tender face was like a flower, looking up and down at her, and asked at the same time. Xiao Fenghe. The opposite beautiful female, has shown the most virtuous posture and said her name. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 359. Who strives for whom? Xiao Fenghe. Yang Chen's eyes jerked and he remembered a person. Mrs. Fenghe. The elder of the yin-yang demon sect was unexpectedly in this inn, it was something that Yang Chen did not expect. The strength of a Yuning stage master could also add countless variables to Yang Chen's trip. I don't dare, this Xiao Fenghe salute young master. Xiao Fenghe once again gave Yang Chen a slight bow, but her eyes never left Yang Chen's face. She smiled and asked. Is the ancestor good? The Jade Law was of course definitely a unique skill of some old devil. Yang Chen could practice to the third layer, and it must be that he was descendant of the ancestor. Even Xiao Fenghe did not dare to be rude to a legendary ancestor who was about to ascend. The ancestor is very good, I am indebted to Sister Fenghe for her worry. Yang Chen laughed and replied, and he became more astute. His eyes were no longer lasciviousness. He practiced the Jade Law to the third layer, and he was able to maintain his virginity in the presence of a few beautiful women. If he still acted that he was still lasciviousness in front of her, it would be a bit too much, so Yang Chen immediately returned to his normal appearance. However, Gongsun did not intend to leave Yang Chen's arms. She just held Yang Chen, she was staring at the noble and unmistful Mrs. Fenghe, as if watching the life and death of an enemy. If the eyes are knives, it was estimated that Xiao Fenghe would already be riddled with holes. Mrs. Fang Hua certainly noticed Gongsun unfriendly gaze, if it were not for Gongsun being Yang Chen's concubine. When such a gaze came out, Mrs. Fenghe would have already attacked her. Mrs. Fenghe not only relied on the power of the yin-yang demon sect, but more importantly her own killing trump card. Little sister, you are at the early Jiden stage, it is really a waste of nature's product to occupy such a treasure. However, since it was a person around Yang Chen, Mrs. Fenghe still does not want to offend her, so she explained to Gongsun with unprecedented patience, elder sister only wants to have a happy night. If little sister is willing, whatever you want, as long as elder sister can do it, it will not decline. Gongsun never thought that one day, she would actually be in public and there would be a beautiful and majestic woman who she has only seen ask her to give her lover to her for the night if she agreed to her conditions. It seemed like such a thing was just an ordinary transaction, a common thing. If this kind of thing happened in the Dao sects, it would simply be an inconceivable matter. Which female cultivator would be such a shameless person and so brazen to talk about these things? Even if it was for double cultivation, they would not be so open about it. For a time, Gongsun was directly stunned and did not know how to answer it. However, this situation fell in the eyes of Mrs. Fenghe, but she thought that it was Gongsun who was still hesitant and painfully struggling in her heart. This inn belongs to elder sister will drive away everyone else and let you and young master enjoy yourself. Mrs. Fenghe stood up and no longer talked about this matter with Gongsun, but she agreed to Yang Chen's original request when he came to the inn. From the beginning to the end, Mrs. Fenghe did not seem to have required Yang Chen's reply, it was just that Mrs. Fenghe doesn't care about it. When she murdered in front of Yang Chen, she has already demonstrated her determination with action. Yang Chen agreeing or disagreeing seemed to be less important to her. Although the ancestor behind Yang Chen was very scary, but he was approaching his ascendancy, so he presumably would not start a dispute with the yin-yang demon sect at this stage. Moreover, although this matter has great benefits for Mrs. Fenghe, the benefits for Yang Chen would be even greater. Yang Chen was only in the early Jidan stage, and if he had double cultivation with Xiao Fenghe who was in the Yuaning stage, the unique speciality of the Jade Law would make Mrs. Fenghe break through and Yang Chen would get at least half of Mrs. Fenghe cultivation base. Of course, this was not to say that it would directly destroy the cultivation base of Xiao Fenghe, but to purify her spiritual power and spiritual awareness to an incredible point, and the extra part was naturally to Yang Chen. The difference between the two was almost close to two big realms. This kind of double cultivation could directly upgrade Yang Chen's cultivation base to the peak Jidan stage, and even immediately facing the tribulation to form his nascent soul was possible. And Yang Chen's Jade Law would also raise and enter the fourth layer. In the fourth layer, Yang Chen could have double cultivation with any female of his own choosing, and he wouldn't have to worry about the restrictions of the cultivation method. In fact, when the Jade Law was at the third layer and he was to have sexual intercourse, the higher his female partner cultivation base was the better. To be frank, a master of the Daching stage maybe would even take the opportunity to have double cultivation with him. Xiao Fenghe got such a rare treasure at the moment, how could it be given to others? Fortunately for Xiao Fenghe, if she was replaced by other people, they might not know the mystery of the Jade Law. The elders of the Yin-Yang demon sect were better than others in their knowledge on this aspect. Yang Chen and Gongsun Ling absolutely did not think of it, that just letting Gongsun Ling disguise as his concubine, pretending to be demonic cultivators, just because of Gongsun Ling and the 5 female slaves being virgins, it would let Xiao Fenghe to produce such a big misunderstanding. Unexpected things have already happened. Yang Chen seems to have encountered some fun opportunities. When Xiao Fenghe arranged everything, they lived in the most luxurious inn set without the supervision of others. After that he arranged a few restrictions, Yang Chen began laughing. Gongsun Ling has never known what it was to raise the Jade Law, although the previous performance just showed her position, but of course this time she would have to ask. After Yang Chen explained to Gongsun Ling that he had not raised the Jade Law, Gongsun Ling did not know whether to laugh or cry. How could things inexplicably develop to this point? Even in the misunderstanding, Yang Chen became the treasure in the eyes of the female demon cultivators, and they would rushing to seek Yang Chen to sleep with them. It was a pity that the cultivators who cultivated the Jade Law have only one chance to break through, and the conditions of their cultivation were harsh. They must also be in the first and second layer when they are tempted by the beauties around them. If their mind was not strong, it would directly lead to cultivation deviation and they could die. If it was not this difficulty, it was estimated that every man in the demon sects would cultivate the Jade Law. However, it was precisely because of the harshness of the cultivation of the Jade Law which has led to the success of the ancestor for thousands of years. Yang Chen's counterfeit goods appeared and was discovered by Xiao Fenghe. It was estimated that even if she was risking offending his ancestors, she would risk it. Not to mention the improvement of her realm after the breakthrough, if Xiao Fenghe could also become a master of the Daching stage and not grow old, it was enough to make any beautiful woman mad with desire. Xiao Fenghe was not a sex maniac, nor was she a rash person. Therefore, she did not immediately ask for a room with Yang Chen. The Jade Law was a double cultivation method and of course it required the willingness of both parties. At this point, how could Xiao Fenghe not understand how to read men? The Yin-Yang demon sect, this was a sect that indulged in Yin-Yang double cultivation and all the disciples were famous for their knowledge in it. As the elder of the Yin-Yang demon sect, Xiao Fenghe was naturally one of the best among the best in this aspect. Dealing with men, making men falling in love with her, Xiao Fenghe compared to Gongsun Ling, who only knew how to feel shy when holding hands with Yang Chen, their experiences could not be measured. Xiao Fenghe's eyes were more greasy than Gongsun Ling's. She does not give men the slightest space, and the performance of jealousy was 100 times stronger. Young master, although I only want to have a happy night, but it is also clear that I am a pure daughter. Even if young master does not abandon, but also have to be sympathetic. When Xiao Fenghe was dressed in the most conservative palace lady style of dressing only revealing her most attractive lines, plus the noble and glamorous face, when her inviolable expression spoke these words, it really made people have a strange feeling. Yang Chen looked at Xiao Fenghe's gaze at the time. Although some of the eager appearances were out, but what kind of person was Xiao Fenghe? There were countless people she has experienced. Where couldn't she see that Yang Chen really has such a lover? As long as Yang Chen has such a temptation, Xiao Fenghe has the confidence to make Yang Chen fall under her pomegranate skirt. For a man, the happiest thing was not to get a woman who was compliant, but to conquer an ice-cold woman who cannot be conquered. Xiao Fenguo's action at the moment was in full compliance with the image of the woman who could best provoke men's conquest. She was glamorous and noble, and her temperament was outstanding, it looked like ice and jade. Although it was a flower in the mouth, it never makes a fuss to a man. As long as it was a man, he would like to put such a woman under his body and enjoy it, this could have a different satisfaction. Moreover, the identity of Xiao Fenguo was noble, the Yin-Yang demon sect had almost the same status as the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island. The status of the elders of the Yin-Yang demon sect and theirs were almost the same. Conquering such a noble woman could definitely make people choke with satisfaction. What was even more exciting was that the reputation of Xiao Fenguo was really pure. Despite being the elder of the first big double cultivation martial arts sect of the demon path, there has never been a rumor of Xiao Fenguo having an affair with any man. Her reputation was based. The reason why she was called Madam was not because Xiao Fenguo has already been married, but it was only when her identity reached this high level, and those who respected her called her Madam. It was very rare for someone to be called a fairy in the demonic domain, so they were called Madam instead. Calling herself pure was to make everything clear, coupled with this deliberate performance, seemed to have suddenly lost the relationship between Yang Chen and Xiao Fenguo. It was not that Xiao Fenguo wanted to push Yang Chen, but Xiao Fenguo wanted to let Yang Chen accept her. This was the great thing about Xiao Fenguo. Turning a good thing for both sides, and still asking for something, into a role-playing general conquest game, the man's mind was almost exactly accurate. If want you to come to me, but you still have to ask me, let me allow you to go to me, the subject and the guest, the moment was reversed, so the means of overturning the reign, even Yang Chen could not help but secretly scream for the performance of this stunner. This Xiao Fenguo isn't just a casual person. Before I give myself to the young master, I don't dare to ask for the identity of a concubine. I just want to be a slave or maid that will attend to the young master's needs. Xiao Fenguo's sentence was not all, she just followed it up and also said this. She puts herself in a low position, but she does not leave false words. This was the performance of a pure woman who could definitely stimulate the men's conquest directly. Sometimes, the process of conquering the pursuit was even more wonderful than the result. Xiao Fenguo knew this well, and the small means of using it was pure. If it was changed to someone else, it would absolutely irritating, they would have to use pleasing words to flatter in order to approach them. Xiao Fenguo was really like Gongsun, she was covered with black velvet, respectfully standing behind Yang Chen, waiting for the time to come, but before she has begun to conquer, she has already enjoyed a great satisfaction. Thinking about it, a beautiful woman in the Yuning stage, apart from not touching her, she was obedient in front of him, what a proud satisfaction. In particular, this beautiful woman still has a great reputation in the local area. When countless people saw this, what kind of envy and hateful eyes would they show when they looked at him? What kind of vanity would it be? What kind of satisfaction and pride would it be? In grasping the hearts of the people, especially the man's heart, Xiao Fenguo was definitely at the level of a grandmaster, she was almost second to none. Young master, you cannot comply. Gongsun acted as if there was a threat to her status, she has to brush the image of a concubine. After seeing Xiao Fenguo's action, her first reaction was to plead with Yang Chen. In fact, Gongsun was indeed afraid of the temptation of this woman in Yang Chen. Even if she was a woman, Gongsun could feel the great attraction of Xiao Fenguo. It was not the case that wearing a few exposed clothes could compete with each other. In the past, Gongsun always thought that as long as a person was beautiful, they would be able to get the pursuit of many people. For example, the cold plum fairy Zhanxian, the snow fairy Sun Qingxu, even her own self, including Gao Yu, there were many young talented juniors who have expressed their love, but they were refused. Now facing Xiao Fenguo from the demon sect, Gongsun really realized that even if people wrapped themselves up tightly and their faces were not revealed, and even if they were cold and indifferent, they could also make men fascinated. At this moment, Gongsun felt that she and Gao Yu had been greatly threatened. Why not? Yang Chen's reaction really sat down with the concern of Gongsun, he even complied with Madame Fenguo's request. This made Gongsun heart sink in an instant. Madam? Yang Chen just called a sentence and was interrupted by Madame Fenguo. Young master, this slave do not dare to be called madam, please call the slave Fenguo. Well, Fenguo. Yang Chen accepted the advice and immediately changed his mouth. This young master wants to buy a group of 9 secluded magic irons essence, take this young master to see. Yes, young master. Madame Fenguo agreed and then took Yang Chen to go out first. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 360. Is jealously also part of cultivation? Of course, Madame Fenguo was not really a slave to Yang Chen. The reason for this was that in addition to Yang's willingness to cooperate, there was another important plan. Even if you want to slaughter a pig, you have to wait for it to mature before killing it. Although it was magical to raise the Jade Law, it was also a matter of maturity. Judging from the performances of Yang Chen and Gongsun, Yang Chen was just at the third layer of the Jade Law. Although it was already possible to have sexual intercourse at this point, it was better for Yang Chen to raise his cultivation base for the Jade Law to have a higher effect. During this period of time, in addition to letting Yang Chen become enchanted with her, Xiao Fenghua's other plan was to improve Yang Chen's cultivation. With her insights and some hidden means, it was clear that Yang Chen was now at the peak early Jidan stage. As long as he could make some breakthroughs, she would naturally get more benefits. The highest of Yang Chen's spiritual powers was the wood attribute spirit power, which was as the result of the nourishment of the huge first wood tress and spiritual solution. In the same way, the wood attribute was the spiritual root attribute that Yang Chen actively expressed after he came to the demon domain. Whether it was spiritual power or flying sword, it was all wood attributes. If she wanted to improve Yang Chen's cultivation, it seems that she needed to work hard on the wood attribute spirit power with medicinal pills. Madame Fanghua has begun to ponder how to help Yang Chen improve his cultivation base. The relationship between Madame Fanghua and Yang Chen was not so much like a master and a servant or a cooperation, but rather they are two people who are working to outdo each other. Xiao Fanghua did not wait until Yang Chen said that he had promised, until she had just shown that the situation aroused Yang Chen's desire to conquer, and then she heard the words promised by Yang Chen. Prior to this, regardless of whether Yang Chen agreed or disagreed, Xiao Fanghua has secretly placed Yang Chen under house arrest. With her cultivation base at the Yuning stage, she believed that Yang Chen could never escape her control. And Yang Chen has no extra movements, it seemed to have defaulted to this situation. After all, in the consciousness of Xiao Fanghua, Yang Chen also has a powerful and arrogant ancestor who she would never provoke it if it was not necessary. Yang Chen also needed to use the power of Madame Fanghua to do his own thing. So, until now, both sides have treated each other with courtesy and have not tore their faces. Now, Mrs. Fanghua wanted to raise pigs. She had to play a role-playing game with Yang Chen naturally has to cooperate. When the graceful Madame Fanghua became the slave of Yang Chen and appeared in the small city, the whole city suddenly boiled up. Madame Fanghua did not mention her real name in the small town. The fat man and the thin man did not know Madame Fanghua, but they also heard the news of Madame Fanghua from the mouth of the white-bone old demon. Although most people did not know the true identity of Madame Fanghua, but to be able to control the most luxurious inn and having the peak Yuning stage cultivation base, this woman has already made many people have a desire, but they did not have the guts to act. As for those who knew the identity of Madame Fanghua, they dare not have any scorn. But now the woman who had the identity as the most noble woman in the small town, in less than a few hours, she became a slave to Yang Chen. Even her status was not as strong as that of Yang Chen's early Jidan stage concubine. This caused countless guesses. What was the identity of Yang Chen? Actually, without any major conflicts, Madame Fanghua became his slave. Standing behind him, it seemed that she belonged to the kind that made Yang Chen do whatever he wanted. What kind of background should he have to become a taboo for a master of the Yuning stage? As for those who knew the identity of Madame Fanghua, they directly guessed the identity of Yang Chen to be the heir of the demon emperor. Otherwise, it was impossible to explain how the elder of the yin-yang demon sect would be willing to become a slave to an early Jidan stage junior. The innkeeper and the bodies of the two beautiful women were even undressed and thrown away, which made them certain more and more. It should be that Yang Chen was not happy and that Madame Fanghua personally moved and killed the three people to please Yang Chen. No one could guess the true identity of Yang Chen, but everyone has already had a consensus, that was, never to provoke Yang Chen. Here was the mining area of the 9 secluded iron mines. Yang Chen wanted the 9 secluded iron essence which was almost everywhere in the area. However, the highest quality was still at the auction houses. Madame Fanghua came to the auction site directly with Yang Chen. When the group arrived, the person in charge of the auction site almost came out to meet and greet him. He respectfully brought Yang Chen to the auction house. "Young master, here is the best 9 secluded iron essence." In front of the person in charge of the auction site, Madame Fanghua very graciously reported this to Yang Chen and immediately turned to the head of the auction site. "Is it possible to take out your best 9 secluded demon iron essence so that the young master can pick from it? Let's relax." Gongsun in Yang Chen's arms screamed out loudly. The young master hasn't decided yet, are trying to decide for him. The person in charge of the auction house knew the true identity of Madame Fanghua, and Gongsun Ling's resentment almost scared the head of the auction house to a sudden cardiac arrest. Does a woman in the early Jidan stage dare to berate Madame Fanghua so much? But what was even more frightening was the performance of Madame Fanghua. After being reprimanded by a Jidan stage descendant, Maiden Fanghua did not show any anger, but she was submissive and apologized. Yes, this slave acted by herself. Although he have already seen Madame Fanghua's appearance as a slave from the beginning, there was still a trace of suspicion in the hearts of the auctioneer. Even if Madame Fanghua bowed, she would have her own temper. He didn't expect this scene in front of him to be so shocking. For a while, the head of the auction house was trembling a little, not knowing what to do next. Was it necessary to take out the 9 secluded demon iron essence, or should he not take it out? There are rules for the auction house in every auction house. Since there is something we like, then we have to wait for the auction. Gongsun Ling continued, shopkeeper, when is the auction? When will there an auction for the 9 secluded demon iron essence? My young master will also have to stay for some time and be ready to get involved. In just a few days. There will be one in a few days. The auctioneer quickly replied and looked up. He saw Madame Fanghua staring at him and hurriedly changed his mind. Tomorrow, there will be an auction tomorrow. The 9 secluded demon iron essence will also be in the auction. Well, my young master will come to the auction tomorrow. Gongsun Ling made a decision for Yang Chen directly and then turned to Yang Chen and spoke with a soft voice. Young master, what do you think about how I handled it? Gongsun Ling was very worried that Yang Chen would not be able to resist Xiao Fangha. However, when Yang Chen and her were together, there was no such worry. Yang Chen clearly passed his thoughts to Gongsun Ling through the method of spiritual awareness double cultivation, at least for the time being. Here, Yang Chen used a small trick. He told Gongsun Ling that he had not been confused by Madame Fanghua for the time being. However, what would happen in the future would require the help of Gongsun Ling. In order to let Yang Chen not fall into the charm of the female devil, Gongsun Ling also had to make all the stops to help Yang Chen. Of course, the first point was to fight against Madame Fanghua. Yang Chen cannot be allowed to be surrounded by Madame Fanghua. This kind of opportunity is really rare. Even if it is jealous, it can be regarded as cultivation. Yang Chen clearly conveyed this idea to Gongsun Ling's senior sisters can regard this as a battle, a practice, and try her best to defeat the enemy. I am sure that your heart cultivation will be improved. In the cultivation of the people, the heart devils would be encountered almost throughout the entire process of cultivation. The negative emotions like jealousy were also a kind of heart devil. Yang Chen said that this was a battle and it was not exaggerated. If Gongsun Ling buried the seeds of the heart devil in her heart, it would be very troublesome in the future. It would be better to take advantage of this opportunity to overcome this negative emotion. On the other hand, this was also a very rare game. Even if she didn't aim at the jealousy, it was a rare experience to grow her spiritual awareness. Of course, Yang Chen would be able to hold himself back. The emotions of a Great Principle Golden Immortal, let alone the witch in the Yuanying stage, even if there was a female demon that had the Great Principle Golden Immortal cultivation base, after Yang Chen killed tens of thousands of immortals, even she couldn't confuse Yang Chen. The bloody river was enough to keep Yang Chen completely awake at any time in the face of any temptation. However, Yang Chen said this, if he was able to let Gongsun Ling thoroughly invest in it, it would have great benefits for Gongsun Ling's cultivation. The concern and worry about Yang Chen would cause Gongsun Sunling to explode with more power than her own strength, and the Justly Jealous show just proves this. Since Xiao Fanghua wanted to play this game and she defined herself as a slave to Yang Chen in order to satisfy Yang Chen, then in terms of identity, Gongsun Ling had a higher status than Xiao Fanghua, so it should be justified. This young master is happy with your decision. Yang Chen was satisfied and twisted the small fox-like nose of Gongsun Ling gently and he said with satisfaction, but also secretly gave Madame Fanghua a provocative look. The two were in the fight, but Yang Chen has helped Gongsun Ling, who seemed to have gained the upper hand. But in the eyes of Madame Fanghua, she did not feel that she had lost. On the contrary, since Gongsun Ling has such a performance, then her turn would also come. Quickly, Yang Chen would find out that a woman who was jealous of her own man would be annoyed and naturally she would think about her own goodness. The characteristics of the Jade Law, Madame Fanghua was very clear about it, the more Yang Chen and her own mind were harmonious, the more benefit she would get, she was naturally wanted to rely on this game to deepen her tacit understanding with Yang Chen. Gongsun Ling, this seemingly unrestrained little girl was not her opponent. The two sides thought about each other and respected each other's thoughts. Xiao Fanghua felt that she had already won the small game. Now she still puts on the proud but submissive face and asked what else is young master interested in. Let go around and see what good things are there. Yang Chen ordered and went out to board the ship and took the 6 women and Madame Fanghua and slowly flew toward another merchant. After Yang Chen and Madame Fanghua entered the opposite store, the shopkeeper of the auction house became soft all over and he sat on the ground. He didn't know when his whole body has been soaked in cold sweat. Although the shopkeeper was already in the Jidan stage and he rarely sweats, but he was still sweating from the situation just now. Not long ago, there was news that a demonic weapon was going to be unearthed. Here, there was another mysterious devil king incarnate. It seemed that the 9 secluded iron mines would be in a tumult and there would be no more peace. After a long journey and the small town was almost turned over, Yang Chen returned to the inn with Gongsun and Madame Fanga. "Young master, madam, this is some of the things that this slave prepared for the lady, and I'll ask the lady to kindly accept it." In front of other people, Xiao Fangua was still a high-ranking lady, Madame Fangua. After Yang Chen and Gongsun settled down, Madame Fangua led a group beautiful women in the foundation stage, and they came to the room of Yang Chen and Gongsun. This row of beautiful women, each person had a jade plate in their hand. There were a lot of good things on the plate. Yang Chen scanned it. There were several kinds of medicinal pills, several rare and precise earth attribute materials, and so on. These were all excellent items for the earth attribute cultivators, and it even included a few beautiful dresses. All of these were given to Gongsun. It was rare for Madame Fangua to prepare so many good things in such a short period of time. It seemed that all her precious materials were used. All were sent to Gongsun. Wasn't it just a blow to Gongsun? Gongsun showed great joy and once again showed her youthfulness in the eyes of Madame Fangua, which was easy to be bought. She could not take advantage of her natural beauty, she only knew about being intimate to seduce Yang Chen. She was greedy, narrow-minded, jealous, everything, could only explain that Gongsun was definitely not the opponent of Madame Fangua. At least Xiao Fangua thought this way. The more shortcomings that Gongsun showed, the more understanding Xiao Fangua became, which was more and more set off, plus the unique attraction of the people who brought the things was enough to put Yang Chen firmly squatting on his belt. "These women are all slaves I brought for the young master." After Xiao Fangua presented Gongsun with her gift, she continued to speak. "Young master, don't accept it." Gongsun really began to oppose. Xiao Fangua smiled in her heart, this was not allowed, which man would be able to bear this? The more Gongsun wanted to hold Yang Chen tightly, the more she would push Yang Chen into her arms. These female disciples are all virgins. Today, they have taken special medicinal pills to stimulate the Kai of their primordial yin. It is an excellent supplement to the cultivation method of young master. Madame Fangua showed her own consideration to Yang Chen. Considering her thoughtfulness, she said a few days later, this slave will send a batch of Jitan stage virgins so that young master's cultivation base could climb higher. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more.